Welcome to the 17th episode of Friday Nightmares podcast. I am one half of your hungover hosting team this evening, Heather Powell, coming to you from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And joining me is...
Also hungover, but this is Smoke Show Crawford coming to you from Swartz Creek, Michigan. And my God, did we throw him back last night?
You know, I don't know what you're talking about, Scott. I live a clean life. Last night I did my yoga and I drank my veggie protein smoothie.
Ate your kale chips?
Ate my kale chips and then went to bed at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. Just so I could savor the sunrise on Sunday morning. We record via video. We don't post it, but Scott and I record it just so we can see each other's reactions. And I'm looking at my face, and my eyes tell a different story than what I just came out of my mouth. Those do not look like the eyes of somebody who went to bed at 8 o'clock after having a veggie smoothie. And
no, they do not. A lot of you will probably know just from our videos last night. We shared quite a bit on our podcast page, and it was pretty much Ontario, Canada versus Michigan. And good Lord, I think we both made the mutual mistake of challenging each other because it just kept going all night long. And
we like things that go all night long.
We do.
And of course, if you're listening to this podcast, it's going to be a week later. So if you go back to the weekend of September 19th, you'll see in our page the videos that Scott is referring to. We both had separate events. My friend's birthday was going on Saturday night, and a good friend came down from Ottawa. Same friend that came down in the summer. If you recall my tequila and wine adventures on a Sunday night. This time I was a little more responsible. I blew it up on a Friday and a Saturday. So the Friday I blew it up, Scott had other plans. So he wasn't blowing it up as much as I was on Friday. But then Saturday he was hanging out with...
our good friend Adam Thomas from the Double Edge Double Bill. My brother in arms who loves to get me wasted.
Yeah, I think you guys are pretty much brother in arms. And we had joked about, I had said to Scott, maybe I'll video you later. And we're part of this group called Chug Masons.
Yeah, Chug's
Mansion. So I had arrived at my girlfriend's house at about 6:30. And by the time these boys challenged me, I was already like 2 drinks in. And so I drank the drink, and then I had all my bitches with me. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I smack talked Scott? Because really, like, Adam was like there, and I kind of smack talked him a little bit, but it was really geared towards Scott.
Yeah.
No one else, just Scott. And I did. You'll see the video. Well, of course, responded, but these 2 boys felt like I was, cutting off their dicks, so they had to respond back. And it was just a night of like fucking getting hammered and like posting videos as we got progressively drunker. But you stayed in. You guys didn't go out anywhere, right? You were just...
Yeah, we were just chilling at his place.
So we went out. So this is where my story comes in. So as we all know, it's COVID-19. In Ontario, we are still able to go out to restaurants and stuff. We have dropped down our number of people that are allowed in indoor gatherings that are like not a restaurant, but like social gatherings and outdoors. But you can still take cabs and stuff. And since all 6 of us last night were extremely intoxicated and on other substances as well, we had to get a cab. So I went on my phone and I got my app and I ordered a 6-person cab. Cab comes. Sorry, we only take 5 people. And I'm like, but the app says 6. They're like, yeah, but COVID-19, no one can sit up in the front. I said, well, that's fine, but your app says 6. And it's my girlfriend's birthday, right? So, like, I didn't want to end the night. So I just threw 4 of my friends in the cab, and 1 other girl stayed with me, and I had to order another cab. Well, it turns out the bar that we were going to go to, that the first cab dropped my friends off at, was fucking closed. So me and this other chick fucking downed another drink before our cab came. So we're lit, and she's talking all this like 50 Shades of Grey sex shit in the back seat of the truck or cab that she's doing with her current friend or whatever partner. And like, I'm pretty sure the cab driver was like, how long is this car ride? Either he was really into the talk or he was like, I can't wait to get these chicks out of my car. Long story short, we walked around all over the place, and then eventually we found a bar, and they put us outside at first beside this couple that was on a first date, and we were all fucking lit. Like, I'm sure as they were serving us, they were like, thank God they're ordering food, because we were just hammed. And that's when the tequila shots video happened. If people haven't had a chance to watch me do tequila like a bitch, it's on there. And yeah, and then the night went onwards with Scott and I. And at one point, I didn't post this to our page, but I'll talk about it. I got my girlfriend. I said, okay, we're gonna like get Scott really bad. So I started the video, and I said, okay, when I'm gonna turn to you and say, what is Scott? You're gonna say, he's a bitch. And I start off the video with, what is, it's so funny. And what is Scott again? And she goes, he's a bitch. I haven't shared it. If Scott's okay, I may share it. I am
completely fine with you sharing it.
Okay.
Because that was hilarious.
I may share it when we release this episode then, so people can hear it and then see it. It was really, really funny, and Scott's such a good sport, but I didn't share that on our page originally because I wanted his consent, because I am calling him, or my friend's calling him a bitch, so I figured I should at least double check with him before I just send that.
Right, which I appreciate, but oh my God. Like, we started literally World War III amongst ourselves, because you and I were joking about it this morning, and I said, I woke up and told Adam, I'm like, I think last night I made the mistake of challenging Heather. I did not know it was going to go as long as it did, like back and forth between us. And then you're even just like, I think it was a mutual mistake, because we just kept talking more shit and drinking more and challenging.
I don't think it was a mistake at all. I thought it made my night. To be honest with you, it
made it fun.
Not only was I drinking with my Canadian ladies, I was drinking with two of my favorite Americans.
Right, exactly.
So I liked it personally.
Oh, same here. Like, it was more or least joking, like, mistake, because it's like, oh, holy shit, we drank a lot. But it was just a blast. It was like we were hanging out without being able to hang out.
Though, I just can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, we will do this again. This is going to be like an ongoing thing for us, I have a feeling.
You know what? And I am such a bad influence. So my friend from Ottawa, her birthday's November 14th, and we're thinking of going up there and getting an Airbnb and just doing the whole shit again up in Ottawa.
You ladies are wild.
Well, and it's me. I'm the bad influence. Like, I have no problem. And my friend Amber can be a bad influence too if she's listening. Sometimes she listens to this podcast. She's pretty badass too. But yeah, like it was sick. Like, and she had a good birthday, and it worked out really well. And even the cat thing wasn't that big of a deal, right? Like, who cares? We all got there eventually. But yeah, it was so much fun. And work's been crazy for me. I've been barely watching any 2020s. I think I've watched half of the ones that you have here on the list. You've watched more than I have, like a lot more, yeah. I think.
Yeah, and I think because you had gotten ahead of me, and I think I ended up getting ahead of you again.
Yeah, and I've given up that. By the way, Scott's the only one that cares about this anymore. Scott seems to really care who's ahead of who, and I'm just trying to.
Oh, I don't really care.
Make it week to week with my liver, okay? My really clean lifestyle, Scott. My kale chips and my veggie smoothies. I'm just really trying to be one with me and work on me as a person.
You so are. Like, you live that healthy, innocent lifestyle.
I'm a role model,
You are. You are like the rock star role model.
Absolutely.
I mean, you literally, your Pound and Powell nickname was definitely taken on last night.
Man, and like even this weekend, because my friend from Ottawa just split up with her husband, and it was a really shitty marriage, shitty situation. And I was talking to her all about non-monogamy and like fucking like, oh man, like I was just like yeah, bang whoever you want. Who do you want to bang tonight? I was joking that we were going cock hunting, and I sent a picture of like me chasing chickens to somebody, and it was really funny. But it's you only live once, and I'm all about having a good time. And if any of our listeners ever come to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, or hell, once borders open, I got a passport still. If I'm ever in your neck of woods, we'll get together. We'll have a good night.
Yeah, exactly. Like, same here. Like, I'm all about meeting everybody.
I'm more fun than Scott.
Oh, ho, ho, ho.
Really though, if we're honest.
I mean, you do live a little more of an exciting life, but I will say when I do get with my friends, we usually throw it back pretty good.
You do, and you're a very happy drunk too. You're always
Yeah.
like dee 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 dee. Like you look like a little sailor that's just like
A little
joyful
sailor?
and happy. You know what? I think I've only seen you sad maybe once or twice. Like you actually are a pretty easy going, relaxed person with or
Yeah,
without substances.
yeah, I'm just naturally like a positive, happy person. Like it takes a lot to bring me down. Like, and when I do get down, I get down pretty hard because it doesn't happen very often.
Did you hear that, guys? He goes down, and
I
he goes
go
down
down,
hard.
down, down, and I don't have to breathe.
That's right. I'm sorry, Scott. What's one of your talents? How long you can hold your breath a long time?
Yeah, you know
You
it.
hear that, ladies? Very few gentlemen out there that can hold their breath as long as Mr. Crawford, apparently. So he's turning red now. He's all like, Heather, what are you doing? He's wearing his Kill the Cat shirt. He's almost the same color as it. Me, on the other hand, is still look pale and like a zombie that came back from the fucking grave last night.
Oh, I mean, I look like a freaking vampire right now. I am pale as hell.
You actually do look like a vampire. Oh, is that what happened last night? Oh, I wonder,
Yeah.
did I include my little vampire movie on here? I don't think I did. I'm gonna have to type that on while you're talking away. I actually do want to talk about that one. Okay, why don't you talk about your first 2020 watch while I find this name of this random vampire movie I watched.
All
so I can
right.
include it.
Well, this is going to be the one movie on here that I will pretty much say avoid, and that is Archaon, the Halloween Summoning from 2020. This is pretty much, I was hoping it, like, I want to say the cover looked freaking cool. Like, it has this really cool looking monster on it and everything, and I'm like, okay, this could be decent, and it's a Halloween movie. Well, it is very low budget. The acting is pretty painful. I mean, it's not awful, but it's pretty painful. And it's about this guy that's getting ready for throwing a Halloween party, and he goes and ends up getting this Celtic mask that was used during the Samhain ceremonies back in the day. And whenever they put the mask on, it makes them disappear from their world and transports him to a different world.
Gosh,
And there is
so
a monster
original.
there. Yeah.
Pretty sure I've never ever seen that plot in any other movie. Well, actually, see him. Anyway, as you were saying.
And it just was funny because, like, I think they were supposed to be like high schoolers or something like that, but these people looked our age and
They were Scott and I last night.
yeah, pretty much, and like worried about throwing a party at their parents' house and shit like that. And it's
And
like,
now we'd be worried about throwing a party and people not going home or
Yeah.
drinking all our booze.
right. But yeah, this was just all around just kind of boring. Didn't even have a feel of Halloween to it at all. And yeah, this is just one I would just say don't bother with.
You know, I appreciate the fact that you kind of took one for the team here, Scott. It's like we went to a party together and you drank the shitty booze while I got top shelf.
Pretty
I
much.
really,
I was like,
really appreciate that.
Because I think you were going to check this one out too, originally, until I watched it first.
Just thinking about it, but I'm getting more picky. Apparently not with my drinking, because let me tell you, as I go back to that, you're right. I talk about it a lot on this podcast. But we get listeners, so I don't know, maybe people like hearing about it. So, like, I've had more shots this summer than I've had in the past 15 years.
Oh my gosh, really?
Every night I've gone, well, not every night I've gone out. Let's make this clear. I don't go out to the bar to do shots every weekend. Like, I go out with my parents to the bar and, like, we'll have some drinks and stuff. But, like, when I go out with my friends and I'm taking a cab home, like, I'm going to party.
Yeah,
And,
you already have it planned in your head that you're
like, I'm
taking a cab
already
home.
like pre-gaming the shots I'm gonna order, and I've been drinking fucking tequila like it's going out of style, and I suck at it. Everyone can see the video. I looked like I was gonna fucking vomit. Everyone else took tequila like a champ, and I took it like I drank turpentine.
I know you
So,
were so
like,
cute, like so cute. I
Wait,
almost wanted to
are
talk
you
shit
saying
about
I'm
that.
cute? Scott?
Oh, it was so cute. It was like a youngling just finally tasting
Wasn't
pure
it?
liquor.
Wasn't it? Like, it really looked, and you know why I think that is because when I was 17 years old, I did 21 shots of tequila in a half an hour.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I probably should have gone to the hospital and had my stomach pumped. But because I was so drunk, my best friend and my other good buddy had to put me to bed with like a vomit bucket.
Yeah,
I couldn't even see.
That is bad.
It was bad. Not 21. Was it? Sorry, 11. Fuck, here I am thinking that I did a lot more than I did. I think it was 11. God, it was so long ago. It was a lot in a half an hour. It was probably 11. 21, I probably would have been dead.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. So anyway, bottom line is, I think that's always stayed with me, and now I'm like trying to redeem myself at fucking 37 years old. Yeah, and I just look like a bitch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think the next time I have to party, like, or we do these video challenges against each other.
So next weekend, yes.
I will have to show you how a Michigander does a tequila shot.
Oh, is that water?
Oh. Oh, already with the shit talk. Continuing.
Sorry, just live near Flint. I just assumed water there is worse than any other alcohol you could have.
I was just going to say, I guess if you took a shot of Flint water, you might get a pretty damn good buzz.
I remember when I came to see you, I asked you if the water was okay. Yeah. You remember that?
Yes, I did. I mean, I don't blame you. I'm only like 10 minutes away from Flint, so.
You're like, no, it's fine. I think I was like, so do you have a Brita? Or do we just drink from the tap? Like, I think I tried to do it like in a polite way without being like, look, dude, I saw the fucking documentary. Like, what's the water situation here?
I don't know what you're talking about. Like, the water has a nice crunch to it. That's good for you, right?
Num in the nummy in my tummy, Heather. That's really funny from our last episode. That was really good, actually. So the next movie I'm going to talk about, like, completely tells you how like hungover I am. I forgot that I watched this one, and I actually really liked it. Is Vampire Virus, which is what I think happened to Scott last night. It's a good little 2020 film. It kind of is like a soft core porn. There's for everyone who enjoys sexy women being sexy, there's a very sexy lesbian sex scene that is included in the film. It's pretty graphic, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I wouldn't recommend watching it at work, Scott.
Yeah, because I had a feeling when you were talking about this movie to me, I was like, this one I'll wait and maybe watch this at home.
Like, with some hand lotion and stuff.
Right. I'm just going raw. You kidding me?
Going in raw. I like the pain. But yeah, it's good. It's kind of like I got to the end of it and I was like, oh, I get it. There's a message here about the LGBTQ community. And that was fine. Like it wasn't an overly political message, which is clearly why it's not in my top 10. Because we all know that if it had an overly political message,
it'll be
that
her
would have
number
been
one.
top 10. It would been number one. Like what? That's all I need for a movie to be good. But it was definitely enjoyable. I can't remember where I watched it though.
Our good friends Plex.
Was it on Plex? So let me. I believe it's on Google for rent and Amazon for rent as well. And I would say, yeah, definitely check it out. If you dig vampire films, if you liked, I would say it's a softer version of Bliss. It's not as soft as the one that we watched earlier this year about the young women who have like the vampire gang. Yes. But it's a little bit like it's kind of in between that. It really is. It's definitely enjoyable, and I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Nice. Yeah, I will probably watch this one at home sometime this week. Yeah, I guess we both watched this one if I remember correctly.
The Voices.
Yep, The Voices from 2020. This one can be found on Prime. But wow, this was like a pretty cool kind of sad story. Like it was about this these estranged sisters that met back up, and one of them has, I think it was ongoing schizophrenia, and so the other sister is just kind of trying to help her around the house and everything, and things just kind of amp up from there. But man, the performances between these two were really, really well done, and I gotta say they handled the schizophrenia pretty well from what I could tell.
Best way I've seen mental illness handled in a horror movie to date.
Yes.
And I know that there's people out there that love The Lodge, and I understand that. I did not think it was handled well in The Lodge. I'm not saying The Lodge is a bad movie. I just don't like how it was presented. I think this presented a much more realistic version of it.
Yes.
And did it a little bit classier, if that's the best word to use, for my taste. Yet again, for my
because it wasn't
taste.
exploitive.
It wasn't exploited, and it was used in relevancy, and there were twists in this movie that you didn't see coming. And questions that you had throughout it, to a point where you're like, is this even real? Like, what's real, what's not real? Like, that to me, it makes it a good film.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt about this. Like, I was pretty much glued to the screen. This was a very, very well done film.
And one of the main woman, Grace, she was in Patchwork.
Was she really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. She was.
Yeah. And Lynn Shay is in it as well.
Yep.
It's actually a very, very small cast.
Yeah, it's very, it's almost like an isolated film.
Yes, very much so.
And then, do you want to take this? Because I know you haven't talked about it on the show yet. And we both watched it now.
No, you watched it recently. You go ahead.
All right, so the next one that we're going to talk about is Werewolf from 2020. And this one is about, I think it's a Russian film. And it's about these orphaned kids. That's the best way I could describe it, as orphaned kids during
Well, they're Jewish kids that were
yes
kept in internment Nazi camps, and they've escaped, and they're trying to escape from or they're in this rundown house or school, and they're basically being hunted by these wolves that were trained to kill people that are Jewish.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, because this was a very, very good film. At first, I was going, I'm like, I don't know. Besides the realistic horrors of the internment camps and all that stuff, I didn't know if this was going to be really a horror film or not. Just thought it was going to be a really good movie. But nope, there's definitely some horror here. I don't know, the kids reminded me of the kids in the Tigers Are Not Afraid. Like that type of camaraderie,
yes.
The way things they deal with everything. That's kind of how this reminded me.
They build a little commune that allows them to survive.
Yes.
And I think that's really important in terms of how the story plays out. It is a creature feature more than anything else because of the wolves.
Yeah.
And the wolves are not werewolves.
Nope, they're just regular
wolves who are so cute.
Yeah, they are.
With their little fluffy tails. Which was not their goal. I'm sure they'd be quite insulted if I went on how cute they are. But it's a very well acted film. It's a subtitled film, but definitely one of the better films I've seen this year, just from the character development standpoint and the way that it does the slow building of the plot and makes you invested in what happens to these kids.
Yes, I was because I think this is in my top 20.
It's good that you're finally getting some good taste.
Oh, you are such a smart ass.
And we forgot, I don't know if we mentioned that you can find the voices on Google Play, YouTube, Tubi. Oh, yeah, the voices is also on Tubi, which I'm surprised because sometimes shitty stuff goes to Tubi, but you can watch this for free.
Yeah, well, it's on Amazon Prime as well.
And Amazon Prime as well. So, which is a pretty good deal. And Werewolf, I don't know if that's been released yet. Hold on, let me check.
Yeah, because I was just getting ready to look into that because I'm not sure.
No, I don't see it listed on here, which means that our good friend Plex got it through other means. So when that does become available, I would definitely recommend for people to check it out.
Yeah, because this was a very, very good movie. Damn, I guess the next one is also mine too.
Yeah, this is what you're doing, the heavy lifting for once.
For once, smart ass. So the next one is The Babysitter, Killer Queen on Netflix, which is
she's a killer queen.
But yeah, this is the sequel to The Babysitter that starred Samara Weaving, and that was one of my favorites of the year as a just entertaining, funny horror film. And yep, this one, a lot of the cast is back, and it's pretty much about the kid from the first one going to high school instead of being a little kid anymore. He's going to high school and he's just kind of dealing with everything that happened in the first film. And then, well, he somehow gets pulled back into it again because these cultists want to kill him because he's a virgin and drink his blood and get pretty much everything they've always wanted. and they are just like the most bumbling idiot style cultists, and it is just so over the top funny. Like it's just so ridiculous.
Compared to the first one, would you say it's up there?
Yeah, it's like, especially like the comedy and everything is the exact same. Like they've pretty much just made a sequel that I would say is right up there with the first one.
Now, I know this is going on a tangent because I haven't seen the first one and I haven't seen the sequel. But is it kind of like how Happy Death Day was one way and then Happy Death Day 2 was another? Because like Happy Death Day 2 is a little science fiction-y.
Yeah, because I've never seen Happy Death Day 2, but I know what happened in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, like they pretty much, it's like, this is like a continuous sequel. Like it doesn't go,
okay, it doesn't go off in another direction. Okay.
No. It's like you could watch the first one and second one and it would just be a good flow of a story.
Okay, cool.
It's ridiculous. Both movies have these characters that are absolutely ridiculous.
Like over the top ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. And it's just funny, has a lot of pop culture references and stuff like that, and over the top violent, and just I would say it is definitely worth a watch. It's quite entertaining. And this one is on Netflix.
And it's on Netflix Canada too. So, yeah. And we don't know about UK and stuff because we're not super cool. But right. I sure hope it is on Aussie Netflix and UK Netflix. Yeah, it's a pretty big movie. I bet you it probably is.
Well, I was saying it's a Netflix original, so I would assume it's on pretty much every one of their platforms.
One would assume, right? But you never know with these streaming services, man.
Yeah, I am baffled by some of the things. Like, well, I think when we talked to our buddies at the Horror for Dummies, like they can't get Shudder in Australia.
Yeah, it hasn't come to Australia yet, but they have other streaming services, and we'll learn more about that, I'm sure, at some point soon.
Yeah.
But yes. But yeah, no, it's interesting, right? These streaming stuff. So, well, the next movie we both saw, and it's called #Alive. It's a Netflix movie as well. It is I believe it's a Korean film.
Yep, South Korean zombie film.
Probably not North Korean.
It's true.
Fair to say. Though I do believe there are some North Korean horror movies that are out there. I'm
sure
I've ever seen one. Venom would know that. Venom from No More Room in Hell and Fresh Cuts, ladies and gentlemen. #Alive. I enjoyed it. It's a 98-minute runtime, and it's a perfect length of time for a zombie film. It's a more of a virus rage, outbreak film.
It reminds me a lot of the zombies from Train to Busan.
Yes, it's very much a Korean film. Like my friend said it perfectly when she saw Peninsula. She said, yeah, like in Korean films, they just linger on the sad part. Where North Americans would eventually pull away, in South Korean films, no, they want you to feel sad.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they want it to like eat away at your soul. And I was like, that is so true. That is so true.
Yeah, South Korean films and there's a couple other foreign films that are just like that too. It's just like they linger on these parts. They make you feel and just make you uncomfortable.
They don't shy away. They don't give you a chance. Well, obviously you can look away from the screen, but they do a really good job of exposing who the character is, the layers of that character, and any relationships. They really let that relationship develop. There was a scene that happened in this that I did not see coming at all. Made sense. It has a little bit of a cheesy ending, but it's a good watch. I would definitely say it's worth it.
Yeah,
and it's on Netflix, so.
And I'll say, like, the one thing I really liked about this, because it kind of covered a topic in a zombie film that really doesn't get covered, and that is, like, what if you are, like, trapped in your apartment and the water gets shut off and you start running out of food? What do you do? It brings up a question that usually doesn't get brought up in a lot of these films.
Well, and, like, I felt like people thought they were going to run into that situation in COVID-19 this year.
Yeah.
Like we all thought we were going to, like, run out of water and food and be able to function. Though, let me tell you, COVID-19 has showed us that no one is going to survive the zombie attacks. Like, Walking Dead, how there's, like, 10 people left, is the most fucking accurate thing. Like, and you Americans aren't saving the day.
No, we are not.
Unless, some things change in the next couple of years, maybe, but if Independence Day happened right now, like, I know it's an alien movie, guys, no. You guys just let us take it, okay?
Yeah, so you guys would... we would be ignoring that this is even happening.
Yeah, there'd be someone being like, those aliens aren't real.
This is a hoax.
It's a
Fake
Democratic
news.
hoax. But you know what? People are like that here too. Like I was watching the news on Facebook, and because we've increased or decreased our numbers allowed in groups, but I didn't know who was getting together indoors in 50 people anyway. Who knows 50 people and it was like people 20 to 39, so it must be like a bunch of 20-year-olds having parties because
Yeah, probably college kids.
who the fuck could you invite 50 people to your house that would actually show up? Like honestly, do you have 50 people in your life that would show up to a party?
Not anymore. Like when I first got this house and we did like Halloween parties, there was about 60 people that showed up one time, but that's like the only time that's ever really happened.
Right? How old were you then?
I would have probably been like 28, 29, maybe 30, somewhere around there.
Yeah, like you probably one of the few people that had a house. That's probably why they all showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you know what I mean? Like nowadays, like I look around and I'm like last night I was with 7 people and I was like, that's a diet.
Yeah, like I'm amazed if I'm like out with like 5 people somewhere. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, but that's even at a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like to just even have a gathering.
Yeah.
I think the biggest gathering I've been in that was outdoors. Okay, that was outdoors was a fire I went to a couple of weeks ago, and outdoors we can still have up to 25 people. Before it was up to 100, and I think that this fire there was 20 of us there.
Yeah, because you counted while you were on video with me talking.
Yeah, I think it was like 20, maybe 22. Like it was maybe 20 to 22. Like it wasn't even at the new limit that it is now.
Right.
Right. Like I just find it so, and I'm not trying to belittle it. Like I understand that these people who are having these huge gatherings and are, practicing social distancing or wearing masks or going when they're sick. Which, yes, again, if you're sick, why the fuck would you go to a party?
Yeah.
Like, who wakes up and goes, oh man, I got a fever, a really bad headache. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to a party and I'm going to share all the same chips and shit that everybody else is.
Right. Well, there's those people. Then you got like with COVID, the thing that sucks is the whole asymptomatic people. Yeah. Right? You could be a carrier without being sick too. So that's the shitty part about this freaking disease. But like, yeah,
But that's like any flu. You can be a carrier of a virus and it not get you.
Right.
If not, like I'm sure when you were living with your ex or even now, there's times where you get sick and Tim doesn't.
Yeah. Like
Tim could have been the carrier that brought it home and got you sick. Like, and again, I'm not playing down COVID-19 at all. I'm just saying, like, I don't fucking understand where all these people have friends to get together in these large groups. Like,
it makes no freaking sense.
Like, I get weddings and funerals. Those are the only 2 situations I can think of that where, like, you're going to have a big party of people that's more than 25 people outside and, like, 10 indoors now. I'm like, I plan on having a games night next weekend. I'll be lucky. Like, there'll be 6 of us playing board games.
Right? Like, and if I play Magic next weekend, the most we might have is like 7 or 8.
Right? Anyway, maybe Scott and I are just big losers, and there's other people out there that have like all these friends and shit. Like, they're the ones throwing these parties. I don't know. But whatever the case, that's neither here nor there. I don't even know how we got on that rant. Probably we don't want to talk about this fucking shitty movie that we need to talk about next.
Oh, you mean this amazing movie?
Oh my god. I think you knew the drama club behind this movie. I think they're your personal friends, so you feel the need to defend it.
Nope, I actually just have good taste and enjoyed it.
Okay, why don't you talk about this movie and then I'll rip it apart.
All right. So the movie we are teasing right now is They Reach from 2020, and it's basically about these kids and this family that end up pretty much summoning a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up like, at the first, it's kind of like a family dealing with this type of stuff. And then it just kind of switches to where it's the main girl, like the kid, and her friends. And it kind of becomes like this adventure horror kind of I would kind of say like it kind of reminded me a lot of the 80s style kids and horror style movies.
Yeah, but those are better. So yeah.
I'm not going to argue that for sure. But like it's very low budget. Like, and I thought the acting, especially from the kids, was really incredible. Like I felt like they were real friends, like that just hung out all the time, and had some very creepy moments and some gory moments too, surprisingly. And yeah, I just thought this was an all-around like just fun supernatural film. I'm not gonna say it's like the best of the year, but I enjoyed this.
And I just want to let everyone know that Scott's wrong. And unless you really have a thing for watching low-budget drama club get-togethers, then I suggest you don't watch this movie. I will say that for practical effects and for the budget they had, they did pretty good. I will give them credit for that. I will give them credit for trying to write a very creative script. But the acting was painful at times by some of the people in this, and it felt like it was filmed on a camcorder but not found footage. So Scott and I have never had more polarized views of this. And I'm not saying he's wrong as much as I tease, because other people in this community, specifically Mark Nato and who's the other one?
Jason Lloyd.
And
both, Tammy Turner, Taminator.
Well, Tammy's your girlfriend, so that's not really fair. So Tammy, the Taminator, Mark Nato, and Jason Lloyd, former host of Horrorphilia, all love this movie. It ranks at 127 on my list out of 142.
That's just wow.
And where does it rank on yours, Scott?
I am looking it up right now.
It's probably in the 40s, I guess.
Yeah, I would assume it's probably close to the 40s, maybe 50s.
This is #1 film of the year, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
this will be the last episode of Friday Nightmares podcast.
It is number 38.
Oh my God, I don't even know how we're almost at 100 movie difference. 90 movie difference. 90 movie difference, roughly.
That's why.
No, you don't. Like, this film isn't that good. It's not, Scott.
It's very good. Like, I was impressed with it. It's a 7.5 out of 10.
I don't know how I gave it, so just for everyone's perspective, I think I gave it a 3. All right. So, if Friday Nightmares makes it through our next drinking challenge and through this movie, then we'll continue our podcast. And you can watch the movie and decide. You have two very, very polar opposite opinions. And as much as I tease Scott, I do respect his opinion. He enjoyed the film. That's awesome. It was just a little too, I didn't enjoy the acting. I really did feel like it was a drama club that got together and presented this movie. I will say they put effort into it. I would say comparably to things like the Wakefield Project and other things like that, much better film. But yeah, no.
Yeah, this one was like, I really enjoyed it. Like for the reasons I gave.
And also, I just looked it up. This drama club is from Schwartz Creek, Michigan, and their one fan is Scott Crawford on their Facebook page.
Oh, you are such a shithead.
And Scott likes this.
You are just. This is the shit I got to deal with, people.
Yeah, I do really feel like, yet again, remember we talked about in last episode that, like, if you were to kill me, like, in all fairness, like, I kind of have it coming.
Yeah, like I said, you are going to be locked down in a basement and force-fed kale chips watching, you're going to be watching Jessica Forever over and over again.
I can sleep through that at least. That's
well, no, I'm going to keep you awake the whole entire time.
How?
With
kale chips?
Well, I'm going to make you eat kale chips, and then every single time you start to fall asleep, I'm going to come over and smash some cymbals really loud next to your head.
Oh my God. It's like it's like a drama club's version of Saw. Excellent, yeah. Scott. Why don't you give this a movie idea to your drama club friends that made this movie and see if they can make that one? It sounds right up there. We'll get Exploding Heads to review it. Dave, did you hear that? We're going to have a new movie coming out that Scott's drama club friends are going to do, and it's going to be a rip-off version of Saw. It should be really great.
And I guarantee it's going to be amazing, because if those people are behind the movie, then it's going to be a great film.
Of course. I'm glad that you like them on their Facebook page.
Like smart ass.
So, anything you want to add to this movie?
No, I think we're just going to go back and forth picking at each other more than anything.
But where can you find it in case somebody feels like torturing themselves?
Well, we watched it on our good friend's Plex.
I didn't see it listed on here where you could see it.
Yeah, I looked. I thought it was going to be on Amazon, but it is not on Amazon. So once again, this is one that might be on like Google Play or something. We may just be teasing you guys, and this movie just doesn't exist.
Yep. Because it's Scott's drama club friends. He got our friend to put it on their Plex.
No, it's you know who it is that made this movie? That Werewolf Society behind the Historic Howell Theater horror films.
That's right. That's right. That's who did it. You're just trying to support. You know what? If it was them, it would probably be better than that.
It probably would have been really cool. But no, I'm good. Like, this movie's still good.
But it isn't as bad as my next film.
Yes, I got to hear about this one.
The next film is called The Faceless Man. And I watched this piece of shit because my podcasting partner in crime saw a trailer and said, quote unquote, to me, "Oh, it doesn't look that bad."
Yeah, the trailer didn't look bad.
You know what? You're a liar, Scott. You a liar. And you a bitch. Yeah, it was that bad. It was horrible. It was like somebody watched a Guy Ritchie film. So Guy Ritchie behind like Snatched and what are some of his other films he's done? He always films like those kind of films in like a really unique way, and like that kind of like flashing back and forth with like people walking towards the screen and the storytelling.
And he usually deals with like a lot of crime drama too, right? Doesn't he?
Yes. It was like somebody watched those movies and was like, "Oh fuck, I am just as good as Guy Ritchie. I'm gonna make my own fucking film and make it a horror movie." And they're not him, and this is boring. It is boring. The horror in it is just horror that they consider it horror. The acting is fine. The characters try enough, but the plot is horrible. The opening sequence has probably the best monologue I've ever seen in the sense of a low budget, but it's just so irrelevant to the entire film. Like, it is just not a good movie, and it's actually moved below Jessica Forever because it's my bottom. Because at least Jessica Forever was filmed well and had beautiful cinematography. This had none of that shit. And at least in Jessica Forever, I got a basic plot of, people, the boys have been, these are orphan boys, and she's taking care of them, and, they're under this kind of like dog watch society. I don't even understand what the Faceless Man was about. It was so freaking dumb. Do not waste your time.
Wow. I didn't think anything was going to ever surpass Jessica Forever.
Well, I just want to mention that the bar got lower. So
holy shit.
The bar is actually in the ground now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I am definitely glad you took the bullet. Like, well, I guess we both took a bullet this last week with these.
And I had to take a
movies.
bullet for They Reach to support your drama club.
You didn't take a bullet. You enjoyed it. You just don't know it yet.
No, I know I didn't. I know I didn't.
You're just going to have to rewatch it 4 more times.
No, I'm not. I will never watch that movie again.
You will love it. You will.
No, I will not.
Anyways, I will move on to the last one on our list here, and that is off of Hulu's Into the Dark, and that is Good Boy. Starring, what is her name? Judy Greer? Judy Greer. And she is basically this lonely woman that's been trying to date and just not having any success. She's kind of awkward and a little shy, and well, she just keeps having bad luck after bad luck, loses her job, and so she ends up going and finding a support dog, kind of like just someone to keep her company that she could just love and spend time with. And then, well, every single time she goes out with somebody, and like either she goes out on a date or she's meeting up with somebody, they wrong her, or she just gets completely like just gets extremely anxious and nervous. The dog basically kills them. It's basically the dog is just this like adorable, cute little dog, but it ends up being like this monstrous beast that you don't really actually see. You just like see like the destruction going on in the background. You see like a giant version of its shadow or something like that. But man, this was just a very easy watch. And for Into the Dark, it's one of those it's like a popcorn horror film, or what did you call it? Bubblegum horror?
Bubblegum.
So yeah, like I would put this one is up there as one of my favorites, like in the probably top 5 of the Into the Dark series. Just enjoyable fun.
I like the Into the Dark movies, or segments, or whatever people want to call them. I honestly haven't disliked any of them. Like, I walk into that with all of them with pretty low expectations, and all I'm expecting for it to be is entertaining, easy to watch, and a basic plot that I can follow, and I like that. And if that just makes me a simple creature, a simple hungover Heather creature, then that's what I am, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you. I don't mind the Into the Darks. They're just fun, easy watches. There are a couple that I have watched that I'm just going, oh, this is rough. This is really bad. But like, they're not as often. They're, most of these will probably be like 6 out of 10 to 7 out of 10 range. Like just easy, fun watches.
Or you've seen They Reach and you realize how bad Scott's taste is, and the
Oh,
Out of the Darks are not as bad as you think they could be.
you are such a shithead because my taste is amazing and you just don't know what you're talking about.
We should do a poll. We probably shouldn't because you will probably win. But
I mean, we kind of did with our post in there. Like, and only a few people have even seen it.
which post? What are you talking? Oh, the one that They Reach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people are like, I like the movie. Of course you do. Of course.
And I felt justified. Like, yes.
I
3
know.
people.
You're
Yes.
like, finally my time has come.
Yes, my time to shine.
My time to shine. No one's gonna hold me back. No one puts Scott in a corner.
Yeah, no one puts Smoke Show in a corner.
No one puts Smoke Show in a corner. So older movies, should we jump into the older? So keep it in, Scott. Keep it in. Let's show the magic of what happens when you abuse your liver. Should we move into our older movies?
Yeah, let's do that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sitting through with me, audience, as I tried to manage out those words.
Oh, that was amazing. I love it.
Oh, magical times here.
So I will start off with this one. I was just bored at home one day and just kind of scrolling through it because I had HBO for.
Oh, you didn't have drama club that night?
No drama club that night. I called them up and canceled for the evening.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
But I had subscribed to the 7-day free trial for HBO because we had some movies for this show that I was only able to find through there. And so I was like, oh, well, I have it. I'll scroll through their horror section, see what they got. And I came across this one I've never even heard of. And it's called Into the Grizzly Maze. And it's got a pretty stacked freaking cast. It's got James Marsden, Thomas Jane, and Billy Bob Thornton.
Wow.
And Thomas Jane and James Marsden are brothers. James Marsden's kind of like the troubled brother that just got out of prison. He was coming over to where his dad's hunting lodge, because they used to hunt like grizzly bears and stuff like that back in the day when they were kids. And no, actually, I don't know if they hunted grizzly bears, but
I was gonna be like, it sounds like an interesting hobby to do with your children.
Right? But like, he goes out there and like he runs into his brother, who is a police officer of the town, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna go to Dad's cabin. Got some things I got to take care of up there."
Oh, God.
So as I
gotta go to the cabin.
Gotta go to the cabin in the woods. Well, all of a sudden, like this massive grizzly bear is just like killing people that are just out in the woods, like alone and shit like that. And
gosh, never been done.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this almost feels like Jaws, just for the fact.
Well, doesn't it just sound like Grizzly, the movie that we saw from 1981?
I mean, kind of. I mean, Grizzly had like more of like that whole, like fucking with nature.
Yeah, but it was about a bear that killed people out in the woods.
Yeah, I was like, well, this exactly, but it was also had like the mutations and stuff like that from the chemicals. This one's just more natural.
No, which one was the one where it was just a naturally large bear? We watched that one. There was one that we watched where it was just a naturally large bear, and it went around and messed people up. Hold on, Grizzly movie. Yeah, the Grizzly, 1976.
Yeah, that one had a chemical plant that was leaking chemicals.
But that wasn't chemicals. No, it was just a big bear. You never found out why it was so big. It wasn't deformed or anything. You're mixing them up.
Yeah, I was saying, unless I'm mixing up nature run amok movies, because I remember there was like mutated like fish and stuff like that too, like oversized fish.
No, because I never saw that one.
Oh my God, I'm thinking of The Prophecy. Never mind.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, no, like, yeah. So
Right,
it sounds like 1976 Grizzly.
Yeah, okay. For some reason, I kept thinking Grizzly was The Prophecy. Nope, that's a completely different movie. But
look at you.
Yeah,
see?
wow.
Someone else is hungover today.
Yeah, so this is our train wreck episode, folks. We'll get through it. But the one thing I will say is they definitely had like a spin of Jaws on this, because Billy Bob Thornton is considered a wild games hunter that they call in to take out the the grizzly.
Was he drinking throughout the movie?
Nope, he was sober. He was just kind of a madman.
Oh, well, sounds like Billy Bob Thornton.
But yeah, this was like, for not knowing about this, and it came out in 2015, and I just random watched. This was really fun. Like,
nice.
Really good movie.
Nice.
Do you want me to continue with the ones I have, or do you want?
Yeah, you just finish up yours.
Okay. Well, and then a little hint for what we're talking about tonight with one of the movies. I decided to watch the sequel, Children of the Corn Part 2. from 1992. This movie. Oh.
So what you're saying, it was as good as They Reach.
What I'm saying is, I can't. I'm not going to argue with you on They Reach anymore. I just can't. But, no, this is okay. How about this?
Yeah.
This is as good as what you think They Reach is.
Okay. Why? What was so bad about it?
It just went super freaking corny. Like it's, I think, almost 10 or 6 or 7 years after the first one. And
do they carry over any characters?
No. Nope. It's,
okay, so it's
all new characters.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's pretty much the authorities find out about what actually happened in Gatlin, and like they find all the bodies of all the dead parents and all this stuff, and like they try to clean it all up, and then there's this news crew that comes in. Well, the one that walks behind the rose is still there and trying to corrupt the children, and it's just really cheesy. It's not terrible, but it's like just way over the top cheesy. And there is some like just some dumb lines. Like, what was it? There's this older woman that ends up getting killed by the kids, and her house, like she's in one of those trailers, and the trailer is lifted and like looked like they're getting ready to put skirting underneath it or something. And so she was going under there because she's seen her cat under there. And when she gets under there, the kids show up and they kick out, like they're like lowering the jack stands that are lowering the trailer on top of her, and they're surrounding the house so she can't get out. And the whole entire time she's saying lines from The Wizard of Oz. What a world! What a world! And then she's like, she ends up literally getting crushed by the house, just like the Wicked Witch, and you see her legs just sticking out.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Oh, it's so fucking painful. And there are some like just weird ass dialogue that just like, you're like, really? Wow. All right. This is where we're going with this. So yeah, this one's just kind of blah.
So what you're saying is Children of the Corn 2 is a no-go.
No. And from what I've heard, the only one worth watching out of like the 9 or 10 that are in this franchise.
There's 9 or 10?
Yeah. There's something like that. There's a ridiculous amount of these.
Wow.
And I guess the only one that's worth watching is part 3 after part 1 and part 3. So I may try to find part 3 at some point and watch it. But yeah, it was just something to watch, and yeah, no, well. The next movie I ended up watching, though, this one I know a lot of people have seen and talked highly of. I started it around this time of year when it came out because I was gonna try to, that's when I was trying to do my most newer films and try to make a top 10 list. And the copy I was watching just had some issue where it stopped like halfway through and I could not finish it. And that movie is The Devil's Candy, which is directed by the guy that did The Loved Ones, which we will also be talking about at some point here in the future.
I like candy.
You do like candy. I like candy. But yeah, this one is about a painter that is a big heavy metal dude that loves heavy metal, and he raised his daughter to love heavy metal. And he all of a sudden he moves into this house where there's just like this evil presence where he's just all of a sudden getting like this unknown inspiration for these paintings that he's doing. And they are kind of like dark, and you see like there's children screaming in the paintings and stuff like that. And it's the lost souls of the children that the killer has been taking. And they're basically giving him a warning to like help them in any way they can. And yeah, there's another guy that got corrupted by this house, and he's hearing like the devil in his head telling him to do stuff. And like he's constantly playing like really loud guitar like late at night, because that is the only way to drown out the devil's voice in his head, is by just blasting this music, playing it loud. So this is like a heavy metal horror film, and it has Ethan Embry in it, which I know like a lot of people are familiar with him. And this was, pretty damn good movie. Like I really enjoyed it. I wish I would have finished watching it like when it first came out, because it would have probably made my top 10.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really good movie.
So would you think I would enjoy it?
I think you would. I think you would really enjoy this
one. Maybe I will check it out then.
I recommend it.
I might eat some candy during it as well.
You might as well.
So I'm sure that I will upset somebody by what I'm going to say next.
Probably not, actually.
You don't think so?
Probably not.
So I watched the first Puppet Master movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was a first time watch for me. It's a series I've just never watched, and I like killer doll movies. I actually enjoy them. It was okay. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. I did definitely have a soft spot for some of the puppets, and I didn't really like how they were treated.
Question. What ones would be your favorites of the puppets?
The one that has the drill on its head.
Oh, Tunneler. I love Tunneler.
Yeah. Their kills are pretty interesting. It's, they're puppets, right? So, they're creative enough. I probably enjoyed the third act the most.
Yeah, because like the first two acts, it's almost just about the psychics and like the funeral and all that, and there's really not much puppet stuff going on.
Yeah, and I found that the ending was the most dramatic and kind of brought it all together as best as it could. But I'll be honest, I thought to myself, well, because usually the first movie is the best.
Yeah.
Right?
That is not the case with the series.
Oh, no. Okay. Because I thought to myself, if this is the best, then I don't think I really want to see anything else.
Nope. I would recommend watching part 2. Like part 3 is everybody's favorite. Like that is like the one, because that one's like really good, like for being a full moon, low budget. But part 2 and 3, I would recommend, because part 1 is very slow. Very slow.
And it wasn't the speed that bothered me.
No.
I just didn't find it. I didn't understand the reason why there were so many further Puppet Master movies and why people talked about them and why even there was a coverage of them before.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Like
who would review these movies? Like, I didn't quite get
people that want to torture themselves.
Well, and I wouldn't say number 1 was that bad. I just didn't understand the love for it. Like, I'll never watch it again.
No. I would recommend if you ever feel like watching anymore, check out part 2 and part 3.
Okay, if you say they're better, then
yeah, part 2 is like a much better horror film. Like part 2 should have been part 1, honestly.
Okay.
And part 3 is kind of a prequel, and it takes place in Nazi Germany during World War II.
And so it tells the story of the Puppet Master.
Yep, and that one's very well done.
And you know what? The Puppet Master isn't a bad story. Like, I thought the Puppet Master that died, Linky dies early on, I'm not spoiling anything.
Yeah.
Was like fine. I thought that, yet again, like everything was just fine. And I think I walked into the Puppet Master and probably maybe what the problem is I had put it on this pedestal because in the community it seems to get a lot of love, the series. And I walked in thinking this movie is going to just blow my mind, and it didn't. It was okay. Like, it was very much like average.
Yeah, I think what it is because I don't think anybody just truly loves these movies, like especially because there's like 14 sequels or something stupid altogether, and they are just really bad for the most part. But I think what it is the puppets are so iconic that the community itself just kind of like loves the puppets and wishes that there could be such a good movie around those.
Yeah, I did like the puppets, and as I said, I really like the third act. The third act to me really I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the ending. I think the ending was a pretty decent way to end the film. Like, the third act I enjoyed. That's basically what it comes down to, is I really like the third act, but I could have cared less for the other stuff leading up to it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I was with that one. Yeah, I recommend you check out part 2 and part 3. Those ones you'll give a better understanding and see if you enjoy those movies or not.
Okay, I appreciate it.
No, not a problem.
Next is Critter. 1986. So Critter.
It's Critters.
Oh, is it Critters? I thought. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, look at this. Scott is so annoying. He corrects me all the time. So Critters, 1986. I remember seeing this, like, a make fun of this poster when I used to go to Chuck E. Cheese with my parents. Did you ever go to Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we used to have Chuck E. Cheese here, and had like it would have the mechanical lion that would sing.
Yeah.
And then you would have like the ball pit. Like, now it's just like a little kid's casino, but back then it used to be like games and the ball pit and all that other kind of fun stuff. And in the room where you had the pizza, there was a booth, and I remember my favorite booth would be where they were making fun of the Critter poster, but it was like the characters from Chuck E. Cheese
Oh, I don't know if I've ever seen that.
in the poster instead. Yeah. And I always thought that was really cool. And I remember seeing, when we used to go to the video store, I remember seeing the Critters cover. And I remember thinking how cool it was. And I guess I just never watched it. And then finally I was given an opportunity to watch it. And I really liked it. I thought it was a really cute, it kind of reminded me of Gremlins, only darker.
Yeah, because this was, I think this and Gremlins were kind of made right around the same time.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Because it's just, they were the ones that kind of created that whole little monster buzz that went on through the 80s with like Ghoulies and all the other stuff.
That makes sense. I can't believe I'm saying that statement because you say that shit all the time. My God, we're rubbing off on each other. So yeah, it was just, and I don't want to give it away too much, but for a 1986 movie, it was just really, it flowed really well. The critters were all practical, so everyone who doesn't like CGI probably just come in their pants when they watch Critters. Sakes. So tired of hearing people complain about CGI. But it was good. Like I want to see the other ones. Actually, I look forward to seeing the other ones. Are they worth watching?
Yeah, I'd say there's 4 of them, and I would say part 2 and part 3 are definitely really good. Like, I wouldn't say really good, but they're good. Like,
they're enjoyable.
Yeah, and part 4 kind of goes downhill, but it's not bad, and it's one of the few horror films where they go to space, and it actually makes sense because the critters are from space.
Oh, that does make sense. Yeah.
So
more than when Jason goes to space.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fuck that
Jason
movie.
X. I like Jason X. I know you don't like it, but I like it.
I still watch it. I watch it, but I hate watch it when I watch it. It's like this is part of my favorite franchise, but fuck you. Why am I watching this? I hate myself.
It's filmed in Toronto.
Was it really?
Yeah. It was filmed in
Toronto.
That's
why you love it then. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's why. I'm like, but I like it. It was filmed in Canada. Wow, it's your favorite franchise and you didn't know that, Scott?
Nope. Wow. I did. You know me. I don't know the locations of a lot of stuff.
But it was in the Camp Crystal Lake Memories documentary. Did you not watch that documentary?
I did, but there is so much to freaking learn from that I just didn't pick up on it.
Wow.
Well, I know part 8 was filmed in Vancouver instead of actually New York, except for like the whole one shot.
Wow, you are a basic white bitch, huh?
I am.
Anyway, so that's it for older horror movies. And then, obviously, we'll talk about the ones that we saw for our topic or whatnot. But I guess we'll break it into what we've been listening to.
Yes, I guess I will jump into this one. This one is pretty popular from what I've gathered, at least in the community, and that is Bloody Good Horror. These guys actually have a horror website, and that's, I think, where it started first, is they made a website, and then they decided to create a podcast. But the usual people that are on the show are the main host, Eric, then there's Casey, Joe, John, and then he'll have, other writers from their website join him. Like CC is one that's usually a main one that pops up. But they have 3 different little segments, but they only review newer films. And it's usually just one film that they review, but they have different segments, which I love. The first one is called Beer Guts.
I like that.
And it's where Joe will go on and talk about a beer for the episode and try to find a beer that will fit with the movie they're watching. And we'll get into details and tell you where to find it, how to order it, and all that stuff. And then the next segment is the word of the day, and it'll be John will talk about a word of the day and give you the etymology of the word, and it's usually a word related to the horror film, something that goes with that movie, which is kind of neat.
That is neat.
And then they just review usually the most modern horror film. The last movie they reviewed was Spree from 2020.
Wow, that's cool. So when they do the pairings, I guess we're gonna work on that too with shots. So
yes.
This time, I recommend tequila. Why, Heather? Because that's all I order now when I go out to bars.
This film, I recommend the hardest liquor you can find. Why is that? Because you don't want to sit through this movie sober.
Oh, that's the day reach, right?
Oh, you shit. Well, yeah, I
Sorry,
highly recommend.
Scotty.
You're not sorry. You're not sorry at
No.
all.
No, you're right. I'm not.
But but I definitely recommend Bloody Good Horror. They've been around for quite some time, and like yeah, they do a great job reviewing movies, and they're usually pretty damn funny and entertaining.
So would you say they're funny like us?
Uh,
Or
kind
maybe
of
like me?
funny like you. No, no, because they don't laugh at their own jokes
I
usually.
know. Well, I do that so everyone knows that they should be laughing.
That's oh okay. You're kind of like the laugh track to a
Yeah,
sitcom.
I'm like a life. Yeah, that's right. I'm like a laugh track with friends. That's what I'm
Yes,
like.
there we go.
That's so funny and insulting at the same time.
It
Sorry to all the
is.
people that like Friends. So the next show, or the next, sorry, the podcast I'm going to speak about is Canadian true crime. So it's actually a little bit away from the horror ones that I usually talk about, because it does talk about actual crimes that have occurred. But there's a woman named Christy Lee, and she's actually an immigrant to Canada. She came from Australia, and she's been living in Canada now for 10 years. And I guess she just had always a really big interest in crime, true crime events. And I think a lot of times people don't think a lot of crime happens in Canada, and it actually doesn't compared to the US. We definitely do have a lower crime rate, but we've
Yeah.
had some pretty sensational murders. Um, people are very familiar with Paul Bernardo, Robert Pickton, um, as well as most recently the Tim Bosma murder. We've definitely had some people that have and some murders that have been pretty intense. Like Robert Pickton killed at least over 50 women, possibly
Wow.
more. They may never figure out because he would target hookers and prostitutes in living in the lower Vancouver East Side. And when she covers through these podcasts, she covers through the details of, who the victim was, what led up to the day that things occurred, how did the police investigation go, how was the trial, what was the result, and what is going on today. And it's extremely fascinating to learn more about the justice system in Canada. And there's always going to be people that have mixed emotions on the justice system. But I find it very interesting to sit through these episodes. I will warn, there are some episodes, for example, for my people that live in Ontario, the murder of Tori Stafford, which is a young little 8-year-old girl, is a
Oof.
very hard story to listen to. Because it's very fresh and the things that happened to her are very upsetting. So I want to just give that viewer disclosure there. And she does do this before all her episodes. So she does, talk about, like, in this episode, we are talking about this and this. If you're not familiar with this murder, there's some things I will be sharing. And, of course, if you're uncomfortable. But she's very clear. She articulates very well. Her information is always backed up with stats and facts and sources. So it's a very, very good true crime podcast. And it's Canadian. And as much as we joke that I love Canadian stuff, it is nice to hear somebody who came to Canada, who has become a Canadian citizen, talk about not just the crime that we've had, but the empowerment that these victims have applied to their communities that they've been in, the victims' families and whatnot, and as well as how our police forces have worked together, to solve a lot of these crimes, or lessons that were learned about discrimination and our social class when it came to how cases were investigated. So a little bit more of a heavier listen, but I really like it.
That that does sound like, because I remember when you first found this and you were telling me about it. This does sound like something I would be intrigued in. Because I do listen to like the last podcast on the left as well that talks a lot about true crime stuff.
Nice.
And so like I don't listen to them very often, but like I find this stuff fascinating just to like kind of get the more in-depth detail of the stories of what happened.
Yeah, and it makes sense. If you like horror movies, you're probably going to enjoy listening to true crime. Like, I think that those just go hand in hand, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it's a good podcast. It's done classy. Nothing but respect for this woman. I think she's
Oh,
up to 100 episodes now. So
nice. Yeah, I will definitely have to give this a listen. All right, so I guess we are going to be jumping into our main topic here, which is children in horror. But before that, we are going to take ourselves a quick break and play a promo for one of our fellow Legion podcasters. We'll be
after
right back.
these messages, we'll be right back.
This is a test of the emergency podcasting system. Listen to the Psychosemantic Podcast. Politics, movies, and political movies. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, legionpodcasts.com, the Psychosemantic Podcast.
Welcome back, and we're going to move into our main topic, which is children in horror movies. So, it's interesting because we were thinking about what did we want to talk about next and what would be a really good topic in terms of kids and their impact on horror movies, because we really had to think about how we wanted to do this, because there's kids as victims in horror movies and there are kids as as I guess you could say antagonists.
Yep.
There's also kids kind of just, I don't know, like what would there be any other way that we would shape them as just maybe kind of being there?
Yeah, I'd say like got the antagonists, and we also have the kids getting revenge.
Kids getting revenge. So there's a lot of different roles that children can play, but for this episode, we decided to focus mainly on them as the antagonist. And we chose a couple of movies that we felt fit. Obviously, there are other movies out there. We were aware of that. And we may hit those up for other episodes. But at this point, these were the ones that we felt made the most sense for what we wanted to talk about here.
Yeah.
So for our main, article that we'll start off with is we want to talk about why are kids the focus of so many horror movies. So there's an article which talked about why are kids put into horror movies, and we found this on Screen Rant. I don't know, have you ever been to screenrant.com before?
I have a few times, yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting little website that talks about different like impacts of genre in movies and stuff like that. I actually really enjoyed looking at some articles on there. So the first article that we're going to use is why are kids the focus of so many horror movies and TV shows? And this is written by Brinley Rammel on July 30th, 2020, and was found on screenrant.com. So why are kids so often featured in both protagonist and antagonist roles within the horror genre? Nearly every panelist included had worked with children in the horror genre in some capacity. They all cited that children bring horror to the stories. So I guess the idea here is that we're including children as in a horror movie because of the innocence that they actually project, and they bring more horror with that because, well, let's be honest, no one expects a kid to get hurt. We see children as kind of at the beginning of their lives. We don't want things to happen to them, and we see them as pure and innocent too, which is what a lot of these movies actually play on that we're going to be talking about today. Kids are an easy tool to use to depict the ongoing battle of good versus evil in horror movies and TV shows. Children are especially effective here because their interactions with evil highlight ideas of the loss of innocence, which is something every audience member can relate to. Here's a breakdown example of how kids in horror content and why innocent loss is a scary thing to watch on screen. Some of the most prominent horror films feature a heavy focus between children and a powerful force of evil. Georgie and his friends fighting Pennywise in It. Danny narrowly escaping his murderous father in The Shining. Adrian coming in contact with Samara in The Ring. Or is it Aiden? Aiden. And a whole host of kids giving into, is it Boogaloo?
Bagul from Sinister.
Bagul in Sinister. The list is nearly endless. Each of these films focus on a kid or a group of kids ending up against something evil, sadly, that sometimes involves losing. Regardless of the outcome, it's a jarring thing to see on screen. That's because it triggers something deeply personal for audience members, the loss of innocence. This strikes a chord for audiences as they can obviously relate to seeing something through the wonderment of a child, because all of us have been children at some point.
That's true.
Right? The innocent and the wide-eyed wonder comes with a dark consequence. If someone is only exposed to good feelings, they may be more likely to act out what they experience something bad or negative. Kids especially aren't equipped to handle complicated emotions of things not going their way. This makes for uncontrollable and unpredictable antagonists. What a good point, right? Because kids haven't learned that you can't scream and yell in a grocery store as much as you may want to. And like, I wanted to scream and yell at the cab driver last night. But it wasn't the cab driver's fault about the app not reflecting properly. Just like in the grocery store, you can't always buy your kid a chocolate bar. But they haven't learned that yet. They haven't learned to be adults and, well, most adults. And try to be mature. While children are often depicted in horror films as stand-ins for the good in the battle of good and evil, there's a niche in horror films that features kids as villains, such as Damien in The Omen. Young antagonists are just as scary as their adult counterparts, if not more, because of their unhinged nature. Would you agree with that, Scott? Like, do you feel that way watching movies with kids in it?
Yes, because yeah, like we were talking about like in this article, the innocence lost. Like this is literally these children like lost their innocence one way or another and are like pure forms of evil, especially in most of the films that we'll be talking about, and it's kind of creepy. Like,
and you've always said Gage in the original Pet Sematary really creeps you out because of that.
Yes, yeah, because like especially just like the transformation from being this cute little child to all of a sudden this evil, sinister child that is malicious and loving every second of it.
Exactly, right? And it has no boundaries when to stop.
Yeah.
Right? Uncontrollable. So no matter which way it's portrayed, kids in horror are scary because of their innocent nature. The innocence of childhood has greatly been under attack in recent years. To see children lose their innocence in repeatedly dark and twisted ways is both frightening and compelling to audiences. Whether they come out of experience on the side of good and evil, utilizing kids in a horror movie is effective storytelling, and it's proven to keep the audience coming back for more. I think this is really relevant. Like, how many sequels are we at Children of the Corn? How many times has The Omen been made? Now, mind you, The Omen has also Damien is aged in The Omen as well.
Yeah.
But we've had a remake of Pet Sematary. You know, we had the movie, and then we had a remake recently last year. So yeah, definitely people want to see it.
Oh, for sure. Like there is a audience for these types of films, and like,
even sorry, I was going to say, even though it's not horror, I really thought Brightburn did a good job of presenting a kid in a villainous role.
And that I would consider that horror.
Would you? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like a superhero slasher or a supervillain slasher.
Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. So I'm going to just list out some of the more popular ones that have been mentioned. I'm not going to go through all 10. I'll just list out probably the ones that are most known when it came to children in horror. And ones that surprised me on here was the first one is The Twins in The Shining, 1980 was one of the, landed on the list of the top scariest and most evil children. Would you agree with that, Scott?
I wouldn't, because they weren't really. They weren't creepy.
In it much.
Yeah, they weren't. They were just more just like spooky, but they really weren't antagonists.
Yeah, I would agree. I really think that they had they were the ghosts that existed that were killed. But I agree. I kind of felt them maybe furthering along The Shining, furthering along the plot and the haunting and stuff like that. But I don't know if they had the biggest role. But I really like that Claudia from Interview with the Vampires on here from 1994.
Yeah, because that is one that, because I love that movie. That's one of my favorite vampire movies, like top 5. And I love the way Kirsten Dunst plays her in this, because it's like she is a child that just is always wanting more, nonstop, and it revels in the torture.
What scene really stands out for me is, remember when she brings those 2 dead kids, and you don't think they're dead, you think they're just passed out, and you find out that vampires can't drink still blood.
Yes.
Because it kills them or makes them really sick. One or the other.
Really makes them
really sick. And she does that to, I believe it's Brad Pitt's character.
Tom Cruise, because Brad Pitt was the one that kind of like her father. Tom Cruise.
I thought he made Brad Pitt sick, and Tom Cruise found it.
Nope. Brad Pitt's the one that found it and scolded her, but then they ended up making Tom Cruise drink it because Tom Cruise was just constantly being a dick to them, and he gets really, really sick, and they actually try killing him while he's sick.
Okay. And then another one, like Damien in The Omen, we're going to talk about that. Adrian and Rosemary's Baby, 1968.
See, I'm trying to remember, the child in that. I don't remember any child in that movie.
Well, the baby.
Unless it's the baby at the end, but that's only a freaking minute scene.
And I guess maybe it's because the baby was inside of her doing all these things throughout it. That was the cause of the evil.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And maybe it's just because it's a baby that's to be born that is evil that the people connected with. Regan in The Exorcist, 1973, but she's possessed. So I don't really know if that makes her evil.
Yeah, so it doesn't make her technically evil. It just makes, when she is possessed, she's just scary.
Yeah, right. And we already talked about Gage and Pet Cemetery. I think the last one I want to mention, just because it's Japanese, is Samara
Yep.
or Saduko. Saduko.
Yeah, Sudoku. I'm not sure how to
Sadako
pronounce that.
in The Ring, or respectively Ringu. I agree. That child was creepy. Even in the American remake, holy shit, that child was disturbing.
Yes. Yes,
Like,
she was.
and it pulled on like how little she was and how her mom really wanted her, and she would cause the horses to freak out, and like just evil things she would do. Like, what an evil kid. It was just such a well done villainous, and when she would change, if we do ghost stories, which I'm sure we'll eventually do, we definitely got to talk about The Ring and Ringu, because
For sure.
like Japanese horror films like that are just freaking phenomenal. Like,
And they're usually really freaking creepy.
and scary, like really,
Yeah.
really freaking scary. So we'll break down our movies. There's a couple that we have selected that we felt that kids were used as antagonists and were used very well. And they were just going to give some thoughts on some scenes from the movies like we usually do. And I'm going to let Scott take it away with the first one.
All right. So the first one we will be talking about is probably like the most well-known killer kid movie out there. And that is The Omen from 1976. The Omen is an American-British supernatural horror film directed by Richard Donner, written by David Seltzer, and starring Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Harvey Spencer Stevens, Billy Whiteclaw.
Hail to the White Claw.
Hail to the Claw, for sure. Patrick Troughton, Martin Benson, and Leo McKern. Its plot follows Damien Thorne, a young child replaced at birth by an American ambassador unbeknownst to his wife, after their biological child dies shortly after birth. As a series of mysterious events and violent deaths occur around the family as Damien enters childhood, they come to learn that he is, in fact, the prophesied Antichrist. Yeah, this one is just one of those... This is a classic for a reason. This film is really well done. Like, it's a slow burn, but like they pace this out very well, and like it's almost like Damien really doesn't even have to try to do anything evil. It just, everything around him just happens.
He is also played by the cutest kid ever.
Yes.
And I wonder if, did you ever see the movie Problem Child?
Oh yeah.
I wonder if Damien was an inspiration for that Problem Child kid with the red hair.
Totally could have been, yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm obviously throwing out a complete like stretch there, and by no stance would I expect anyone to buy that. But when I look at how they cast it, first of all, like, let me talk about my love for Gregory Peck. I think Gregory Peck is a phenomenal actor, or was a phenomenal actor. Him in this movie, and this was covered in the Curse series that was on Netflix as one of the films.
Yes, it was.
That had stuff happen. And they had a lot of different stuff happen on the set. And leading up to it, and they kind of just talked, they kind of played it down a little bit too. But when he switches the baby, doesn't tell his wife, and obviously him being at the power that he is, a lot of this makes sense. And when we see that scene where the nanny jumps to her death with the Rottweiler, and she goes up and she says that line, "It's all for you, Damien."
Yeah.
Like, it is really well done. Everyone's reaction to what she does, and I think the practical, because I don't think you do see her jump and then you kind of flashes to see her hanging, right?
Well, what ends up happening, like, because I had watched this recently for a first-time watch.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and,
you just saw it recently?
Yeah, probably within the last, like, 3 or 4 months.
Wow, okay.
And I like this scene because the way they do this, it's during Damien's birthday party. I forget which year birthday it was, but like it's their birthday party, and then that babysitter nanny like says those lines, and when she jumps,
it's his 5-year-old birthday party.
5-year-old, okay.
Yeah.
And when she jumps, like you say, it cuts away for a second, and when it cuts away, it cuts to everybody on the ground, and you see a lot of them turn around looking and reacting, and you just see it from a distance, her body hanging, like kind of dropping and hitting, like,
yes,
or dropping from the rope, and then it kind of pans back to her hanging.
And how they're taking him and turning him, like trying to turn him away, and he's kind of smiling.
Yes, he's just got like that evil little smirk on his face.
Like, that scene is not, definitely, I know isn't the most impactful one, but man, it stuck with me. And even when they're trying to go to the church, and I don't know if something just happened when he turned 5, and they're coming up to the church and he starts freaking out and he's burning up and he can't go in the church. And then eventually the priest is killed in a random like lightning storm outside of the church.
Yes, and that was a brutal kill too, if I remember correctly.
Well, he's
Like, he got his
impaled
head-
by a
yeah, I was
lightning
like,
rod from the roof, thrown from the top of the roof. And at the also time, we find out that Catherine is pregnant, and she tells Robert that she wants an abortion. Like, it's really fascinating how this kid is kind of just manipulating it. Injures his mother, right? Like,
Yep.
it's a very stressful film, and you kind of watch Gregory Peck's character realize that his son is capable of doing all these really evil things. Like, it's a really well put together, well filmed, well paced movie.
Yeah, like, and there's one scene that I got to bring up too. Like, it's when they are doing the drive-through safari at the zoo,
Yes.
and all the animals just start freaking out and
The
attacking
monkeys specifically.
Yes, they all start attacking the vehicle and that Damien is in.
And I remember from the Curse series that someone was killed at that day. There's a trainer that was killed at the zoo that day.
That's right, there was.
Right? And it was the idea that they were doing this kind of thing about the devil worshipping and stuff like that, and that's why. And even though it wasn't technically Damien wasn't being worshipped, it was the belief that he was a devil and the Rottweiler was there, and then that creepy nanny shows up and like to care for Damien, and they always have these awkward starings, and she's like calling him my lord or master or something like that.
Yeah, and she's like teaching him the ways of things and just like kind of just preparing him.
Like, it's just a very, very emotional scene. And Mrs. Baylock enacts a violent attack on Robert, but he ultimately stabs her to death. And then he forces Damien into the car and drives to a nearby cathedral. His erratic driving draws attention from the police who trail him, and Robert drags a screaming Damien into the church and lays him on the altar. He raises a dagger to stab Damien, pleading for forgiveness from God, but is shot dead by the police. I remember that scene with Gregory Peck really, really well. And just because he's lost his wife by this point.
Yep.
Right? So he's beyond being consoled, and he's going to kill this kid that he's basically raised as his own. And one could argue maybe it was easier because it wasn't his biological son, and his wife didn't know that, but he did.
Yeah.
But how a child who's silent, like, I don't remember him speaking much throughout the film.
No, I think the only time you ever really hear him is when he's like freaking out, like, and screaming when he's going to the church.
Yeah, for someone to be silent and to present a feeling of dread as a child with just expressions at that young age of however old this actor would have been, which probably couldn't have been much older than 5 or 6.
No.
Because he's so small looking at the time. Like, it's quite incredible. Like, that to me is someone of true... Now, I don't think this actor's gone on to do much else. I haven't really looked at what his background was after he finished. I guess we can look now. Harvey Spencer Stevens. Have you heard of him before?
No, I have not.
So he did actually, in 1976, he received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Acting Debut in a Motion Picture Male. So
wow.
If we think that he actually had an impact, he did. Because he received a Golden Globe nomination. Now, he was in the Omen 2006 as a reporter, actually. So we had kind of a little
cameo.
A little cameo, which I haven't seen the 2006 Omen. Have you?
I've seen parts of it, and it's almost like exact same movie. Like, nothing really changed. Like, almost a remake, scene for scene.
Okay. As I said, I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen it. But what do you think? You had a great question here, and we talked about how scary Damien is. Obviously, if he was nominated for a Golden Globe for debut acting, clearly he was able to make an impact. What do you think? Would nature and nurture affected on how this event played out in the film? I think that's a really good question that you asked in our notes here, and I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, because this one I was thinking, because like the way he was raised, his parents really weren't. They were just like like the ambassador and all that stuff.
They were rich.
Yeah, they were rich. They weren't always around for him, so it was the nanny he's constantly being raised by, and the sadistic cult member of nanny that's comes in, and I think that's where a lot of this comes from, is just her words in his head. It makes me wonder.
Honestly, because he killed. It's believed that that Rottweiler came and that the first nanny killed herself before we even knew about that other character.
Yeah, and see, that's the part I wonder, though, because a lot of these events happened around him without him actually doing anything. So it makes me wonder if it's just like his presence is kind of doing this to people, or if there's something else going on.
That's a really interesting argument, actually. I always perceived it as he was the son of Satan, opposite of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you believe in, you know, the Christian faith. And he was born to, you know, whatever family was meant. This other baby was purposely a stillborn. And the devil wanted him to be raised by this very affluent family because, you know, a lot of power was there to be had, right?
Yeah.
Like he did have, you know, a good life of, you know, he would have had good education. And even now, you know, as he lives on, there would have been probably a trust fund set up for him.
Yeah, because I know, like, in one of the later sequels, he is basically a politician.
He becomes a politician. And, which I'm sure is a little bit of a political play.
Yeah.
On, you know, devils and evil in politics. But I always took it as with the Rottweiler and how the Rottweiler randomly shows up and Gregory Peck's reaction to that. Like, I think Gregory Peck and Harvey, I can't remember his full name now, but the gentleman that played Damien are really the people that sold this film.
Oh, for sure.
And their reactions. And I to me, that's what really did it in. And I don't think it had anything to do with that woman being a catalyst. I think she just was there to protect him because there was concerns that maybe people would figure out what was going on and he wouldn't be able to serve his biggest purpose. Because Gregory Peck does attempt to end his life.
That is true.
He manages to get him in the church. And really, if it hadn't been for the cops shooting him, he would have. But
yeah, and I think all those events just were circumstance. Like, I think, like, somehow the cops probably would have, if Damien was not the Antichrist, like, and he was just a regular kid and like Gregory Peck was doing this anyways, I have a feeling the cops wouldn't have showed up. But since it was Damien, I think there's just that level of influence that emanates from him without him even trying.
So, because I guess what happened is he was speeding by the cops and they followed him, but what you're kind of saying is maybe Damien called out to them.
Yep, maybe like somehow mentally, or just like his power emanating from him.
That's a good argument. You know, it could have been that for sure. And I think that's the great thing about this movie. And really, for a 1976 movie, it is a slow burn. Definitely a product of its time. But I love this movie. Besides my love of Gregory Peck, which I've already kind of talked to death about. And it's not that I haven't seen the remake because I just love this one so much. I, couldn't imagine watching the remake. I think there's another well-known actor that's in that one.
Yeah, Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I have no doubt that it's probably entertaining. I just think the story behind this and the fact that in 1976 they used a kid as being, the son of Satan or whatever you want to present it as was just really monumental and really took, a look at innocence and this kid not saying anything, being super adorable and being this evil presence. You said it best, of everything happening around him. Like, what an impact in theaters. What a monumental thing in cinema to take this child and put it in this role. I think it's great. And to not have him say a line and for him to be nominated for a Golden Globe. Like,
exactly. That is impressive.
That says something.
That's really impressive. And like I was saying, this is a classic for a reason.
Yeah,
and one that is like so well known and loved.
Absolutely. Well, I guess should we move on to our next one?
Yes, we can. We can go on to another classic in a way. And that is Children of the Corn from 1984. Children of the Corn.
I just watched it recently, actually.
Yeah, you did. I was like, I'm wondering if that kind of inspired this episode.
Yeah, it probably did, actually. That's exactly probably where it came from. And another movie that we're going to talk about that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to talk about as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Children of the Corn is an American supernatural folk horror film based upon Stephen King's 1977 short story of the same name. Directed by Fritz Kirch, the film's cast consists of Peter Horton, Linda Hamilton, John Franklin, Courtney Gaines, Robbie Kiger, Anne-Marie McAvoy, Julie Madalena, and R.G. Armstrong. The film is set in the fictional town of Gatlin, Nebraska, an agricultural community surrounded by huge cornfields. The corn crop fails one year, and the townsfolk turn to prayer to ensure a successful harvest. However, 12-year-old Isaac takes all the children in Gatlin into the cornfields and indoctrinates them into a religious cult based around a bloodthirsty deity called He Who Walks Behind the Rows. Isaac and his subordinate 18-year-old Malachi lead the children in a revolution, murdering all the adults in town as human sacrifices, poisoning and butchering them. Jump forward a few years, and a couple driving cross-country gets stranded in the town and must try and survive long enough to find a way out. And, man, this film scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
Really? What scared you so much?
Right off the bat, the scene in that diner in the very beginning where the slaughter happens, like the person they had playing Isaac was not actually a child. He is just someone with a
He's a little person?
Yeah. And fuck, is that kid just creepy? Like, just the look, like, because all you see of him in that beginning diner scene is him just kind of in the background looking through the window with his black hat and black suit. But just the way he looks, he's like so pale and just kind of sinister looking. And he creeped me out when I was a kid. And then when the wholesale slaughter in that freaking diner happens, like that scared the hell out of me. And then just the events that continuously occur throughout this film, like left a lasting impression on me as a child.
So Job and his sister Sarah are the only ones that aren't converted. He sees his dad die in that opening scene, and he narrates, right? He talks about how he went to church with his dad, and the other children went. After church, they went to go get milkshakes. Probably I'm more familiar on this because I just watched it recently.
Yep, so did I actually.
Oh yeah, nice. And then that massacre occurs, and it makes sense that Isaac is played by a small person because his delivery of lines are too adult to be a child, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like if that was a child actor pulling those lines off, that would have like been pretty impressive.
It would have been. Like there's some pretty heavy just the delivery, I guess you could say. And I think it's interesting that 3 years later, like I don't know if you know this, but the couple's driving through on October 31st.
Oh, I did not realize it was on the Halloween.
1983, yeah. And you know, they see that one child that's trying to flee, and he gets killed, and they see him, and they think that they've hit him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I, for the longest time, like, who's that woman? Who's that woman? And I'm like, oh my God, it's Linda Hamilton. Like, I didn't put it together for a little bit that it was Linda Hamilton. And this movie has so many religious, cultish overtones to it.
Oh, it really does.
Like, this movie was kind of an FU to Christianity. Like,
yeah, it so was.
You know, and it because there's scenes where Bert and Vicky are exploring the town, and they come across these kids that are like, yeah, when I forget what age it is, like 18, they have to die.
Yep, 18, they have to sacrifice themselves.
They have to sacrifice themselves.
They're considered adults then.
Right, and then Bert gives this whole rant of who told you this and why, and like it's challenging what they think, and then they're like, go get Malachi, and every time they said Malachi, I was like, is this a science fiction fantasy film? And it's science fiction-y, I get that, but kind of, I guess.
Well, and Malachi and like Isaac and Job and all those names are old biblical names.
Yes, very much so, right? And man, and you feel really for Job and Sarah, like trying to just survive within this really messed up life. And because Sarah had the gift of the vision, which is why but I never got why he didn't touch Job. Was it because that was Sarah's brother and he didn't want to do anything to Sarah? Because Job didn't really have any special talents.
Yeah, I think it's just because they were I think they were the youngest kids.
Okay.
And I think they just didn't want to indoctrinate them in right away.
No, that wasn't it, because they had the young ones in there too. He said specifically, they're like, why don't we take care of Job and Sarah? So Malachi wanted to get rid of Job and Sarah because they were not following along with the rest of the
saying they were playing games and stuff, which weren't allowed.
And they would listen to music and play make-believe. But Sarah had vision. So she could see when things are going to happen. So he kept saying, Sarah has vision, you'll leave them be. And I just assumed Job got thrown in with that because he was Sarah's brother.
That could be then, yeah, because I always just thought it was because, like, obviously with Sarah, she had the powers, but I also thought it was because they were I thought they were the youngest in the town, but I think you're right.
I think there were other young kids that were involved in the cult, right? Because when Isaac is giving that speech and he's walking around, like I felt like I was watching a preacher on Sunday. We know, like those really like preachers on television. And
Oh yeah,
stuff.
televangelists.
Yes, that are like believe that they can like cure cancer if they touch you, and that the evil will, like that's what I felt like I was watching.
Yeah. Yeah, because he does a great job, and he's like so it's like an obsessed, sinister preacher for this. He who walks behind the rose, which, by the way, such a freaking creepy, kick-ass name for a deity. He who walks behind the rose. Because
you can't see him, and you kind of wonder the entire time if he's real or not. Like if these kids are just like, if Isaac and Malachi are just, or Isaac's just going on this like rant to kind of manipulate and control everybody. Like I doubted whether it was real or not, to be honest with you.
Well, in the part 2, they actually brought up this thing that kind of makes a little bit of sense. But apparently when corn goes bad, like if it's not taken care of right away, it can kind of create this like, especially in children, this disease that makes them hallucinate.
I didn't know that.
And that's kind of what they brought up in part 2. And I'm going, well, that kind of like makes sense. I mean, obviously that wasn't the thing for part 1, but it is kind of an interesting concept to think like this could be all hallucination, and they're like, just thinking this, but like also you did see like the supernatural powers of he who walks behind the rose.
Bert and Vicky saw it too.
Yeah, and I mean Isaac comes back from the dead when Malachi sacrifices him.
Yes, exactly, right? And I think definitely for me, that scene, and then also the kids just becoming these angry hench people, and just the play on the power that someone who is manipulative and a narcissist and evil can have over a group of people, and these children to go back and harm their parents and basically destroy life as they know it and worship. And we see cults that are like this. Like this isn't, not necessarily run by children, but really, like, this is something that we've seen in everyday society. And it's just really interesting that this film did it back in 1984. Yeah. Like, fascinating that this would have been where they went. And I don't know what religion debates were going on then, if there was a push against Christianity. I don't personally know Stephen King's religious preference. I know that this is based off a short story that he wrote in 1977.
Which I guess the short story focused a lot more on the children. I guess he kind of focused on the children before the events happen in Gatlin, where all the adults get killed, so you get to see Isaac kind of indoctrinating everybody beforehand. So kind of like he does like a short story build up to that, I guess, from what I read.
It's interesting. And you make a really good point here. What is it about these children that makes them so dangerous? I think it's about what makes anybody dangerous. It's the mob mentality.
Yep, I was going to say the mob mentality and the zealotness.
Yes.
The righteous zealots that they become for their deity.
Absolutely.
Like it's a cult that believes so much into what the Isaac is saying that they just kind of become religious zealots, and it's scary.
It is, and it really is so reflective of now, and we're just seeing it through as we talked about that article earlier, the innocence of children being removed. And if we saw a bunch of adults doing this, we probably would look at it and be like, nah, but it hits harder when it's kids.
Yes.
And I wonder if that was done purposely.
I have a feeling, and I'll say this is just one of those movies that at that time especially was so freaking creepy.
Just so good. And when I see movies like The Omen from 1976 and Children of the Corn of 1984, I just feel like, yeah, man, good job on you having the balls to use kids and use them in a way that is really dark, because that's fucking hard to, at that time. I feel like that pulled shock value. We still have that shock value now, but I feel like we've become a little more desensitized to it because we've seen it more often than not. But at this time it would have been very, very unique. And even though we would have had the original Village of the Dam and some other films prior to that, I just feel like these films really began to push the envelope, personally.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. And yeah, I was probably way too young to watch this movie when it first came out.
How old were you when you watched this movie?
Gosh, I'd probably say in the age range of 7, 8.
Oh my, that would have been pretty scary for a 7 or 8 year old.
Yeah, it definitely haunted me.
Well, we're going to be getting into that in our Out of the Dark segment when we talk about kids and horror movies or watching horror movies.
Yes, indeed, we
Um,
will.
but
One
I'm
thing I
so
want to say too that Children of the Corn has always left with me, the name Malachi. I use that constantly on so many different things. Like either if I'm doing a video game, I'll make a character named Malachi. Like,
really,
yep, that name had been stuck with me since I was a kid.
that's pretty awesome, actually. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like I don't know why, just like I love the sound of it, and I think just because he's that sadistic, sadistic killer of the group, like it just kind of like, oh, I like to make like any evil character I make is now going to be called Malachi.
Absolutely. I like it. That's awesome.
So yeah, we can jump on into the next one, which I have a feeling Heather's going to have a lot to talk about when we get
Yeah,
into this.
definitely.
And this movie is The Good Son from 1993. And this is an American psychological thriller, film directed by Joseph Rubin and distributed by 20th Century Fox. It was written by English novelist Ian McEwan. Ian McEwan. It stars Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood, Wendy Crewson, David Morse, Daniel Hugh Kelly, and Jacqueline Brooks.
Now, is Daniel Hugh Kelly also in Home Alone?
I don't think
No,
so.
I don't think so. I just recognize that name from other movies, and I don't really know where.
Yeah, because isn't he the father of Elijah Wood?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, and I know him from so many movies. I think he was in The Rock, and like he's always got these like bit parts that he's so recognizable. Like you see him, and you're like, oh, that guy.
That's right. That's right. Sorry, did you read about it already? No, I probably just jumped ahead. Sorry.
Yep. So I'll jump into the synopsis real quick.
Yeah.
Mark, a young boy who loses his mother, must stay with his extended family while his father is away on business. Mark becomes acquainted with his cousin Henry. However, the extent of Henry's depravity becomes clear when Mark sees him kill a neighbor's dog and intentionally create a traffic pileup on the highway. After a supposed mishap on an icy pond with Henry's sister Connie, Mark tries to reveal Henry's crimes before it is too late.
So, wow.
Yeah, like I want to hear you talk about this for a second because I know this is like one of your favorites.
It is, and by no stance when I say favorite do I think this is one of the best movies of all time.
Right.
But I do feel at the time that this movie came out, there was another movie like this called Mikey that talked about kind of like the evils of a child and stuff like that. And Problem Child did it too in more of a funny way. But what I liked about The Good Son is that they took Macaulay Culkin that was hot off Home Alone 1990, Home Alone 2, and then threw him in this.
Yes.
And now this movie, watching it as a 37-year-old adult, I realized what a horrible actor Macaulay Culkin was. And he only had one character, which is why he probably didn't do too much besides My Girl, this, and the Home Alone movies during that time.
The only thing I will say about him is he is very good. Like he's not like a great actor, but he does have great facial expressions.
Yes, he does. And
like
I think
you can see the sinisterness coming off of his face sometimes.
He is sinister, but I honestly think Elijah Wood's reaction to him is what made this movie good.
Yep, 100%.
I think watching this movie, I had a lot more respect for Elijah Wood as a child actor than I realized I did back in the day.
Because
I'm not sure if you want to add anything.
I was gonna say because Elijah Wood though, like he's become one of my favorite actors out there. I just love him now as an adult, and like seeing where like kind of the beginning, because I think maybe Indian in the Cupboard was the first movie he was in.
Well, he was also in a movie called The War with Kevin Costner.
Oh, okay.
I remember seeing that one. We could probably just do a quick Google search of him and figure out what else he was in. If you want to do that, I'll talk about
I'll do that
my love for The Good Son, because I could go on for a long time about this. I just feel this movie took childhood and really remove the mask of innocence. I was joking. I was watching this with a friend of mine, and there's a part where Macaulay Culkin's climbing up to get to his treehouse, and it's so long. Like the treehouse is up in like the middle of fucking nowhere. Never would happen now in 2020. No one would have their treehouse up in that high. Becky's treehouse wasn't anywhere near that in the movie Becky.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he slips and he's holding him and he goes, if I dropped you, do you think you could fly? Now, it's a very cheesy line, but it's a very suspenseful moment. And when he kills the dog and he says, I didn't mean to, it was an accident. Like, the delivery of the lines were painful when he would do that stuff, but you can see the evil progressing. So he's going to go shoot a cat. He doesn't shoot the cat. Then he eventually kills and shoots the dog. He drops a dummy and causes a pileup on the highway. The part where his sister and him go down to the pond, and throughout this whole thing, he's driving Mark crazy because Mark's beginning to see this and he's afraid. So he's saying things like, why would I ever hurt my sister? I love her so much. And they go to the pond and he's swinging her around and swinging her around. Now, I don't know how realistic that another 11-year-old kid would be allowed to take a 6-year-old sister out skating, but this was 1993, so I'm going to forgive it because people were more relaxed back then.
Right.
I don't think that would happen now. And I don't necessarily think it shouldn't happen now. I just think it wouldn't.
Right.
And she slides onto the ice, and that scene when they like break through and he's holding his hand out and she's trying to grab for it and he's doing nothing to kind of grab for her, and you put it together that he killed his baby brother. Like, it's just a really, really good buildup, and Elijah Wood becoming more and more stressed out. And there were reports with the parents where I'm like, why won't you believe Mark? Why aren't you believing Mark? Like, I was getting mad at the TV because I felt so bad for Elijah Wood, and for it to pull that kind of emotion from me, I thank Elijah Wood for that, not Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, and speaking of Elijah Wood, I did find some of his first movies. I'm guessing he had some just like really small, tiny bit parts, like just kind of extra stuff. But apparently, he was in Back to the Future Part 2 as a boy playing video games. Internal Affairs, Child in the Night, Avalon, Paradise, Radio Flyer. I think Radio Flyer was his big one. Like, I actually remember seeing that when I was a kid. But yeah, like Adventures of Huck Finn, The Witness, and yeah, it looks like Indian in the Cupboard was further on.
Wow. He's definitely had a career, and he's definitely the better actor. Like, hands down, he, in this film, was really, really well cast. And him and Macaulay Culkin got along, as actors well, but it was really him that carried it. His reactions is what made you buy into how evil Macaulay Culkin was.
Yep, and a lot of one thing I like about this, like with everything that Macaulay Culkin's character Henry is doing, like, Mark's trying to tell everybody, but they're believing, like, because Macaulay Culkin was good at just going to be, or like Henry was good at just, manipulating and like telling his parents like things that, or no, when he goes to Elijah Wood's character and he was just like, what, do you think I would poison my family with the food? And just kind of like leaving this thought in Mark's head, and then Mark all of a sudden freaks out and starts just throwing everything down the garbage disposal, and Henry walks in and goes, you guys might want to come into the kitchen and see what Mark is doing. And so he's just like, he's good at planting these seeds on.
Well, he's a gaslighter, right? He's a narcissist psychopath gaslighter. So he was written very well.
Yeah, just not the performance was not.
But the performance was no different than Home Alone. Yeah. Like, I'll be honest, it to me, it was like, and this is watching it as an adult, right? And, none of the performances are out of, like, this is The Good Son, 1993. But I know, Stance, am I going to sit here and be like, Academy Award-winning film?
Right.
I just really enjoyed the back and forth between these two 11-year-old boys and how Mark is becoming more and more consumed. And that scene at the cliff where and this scene always sticks out in my mind, where the mother's holding on to the cliff after Macaulay Culkin or Henry's pushed her off. He's about to throw the boulder, and Mark shows up just in time.
Yep.
And they're fighting, and the mom eventually climbs up. Though that's funny, when you fall, you can see the cord. Like, you can see the rope.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, if you watch it, you can see the rope holding her. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
One part I do have to critique here was, like, her climbing up that cliff. Like,
oh, yeah.
I'm like, there's no way you would have slipped and fell to your death, because there's no way anybody could have, like, climbed what she was trying to climb.
And the time that she climbed, too. Like, she's no fucking experienced mountain climber, and she was wearing clothes and shit, right? But, suspension of disbelief, I guess, for that scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then we wouldn't get up to the point where she's holding on each, she has... And I remember that scene being much more dramatic, and I could have swore that Macaulay Culkin says, just drop him, Mom, it's fine. Like, you can just drop him. I could have swore when I saw it before, he said something like that. But he didn't.
Didn't he say something like, Mom, I need your other hand, I'm slipping, or something like that? Yeah. Isn't that what he was saying?
Yeah, he says that, but I could have swore there was something where he said, Like he looked at her and he was like, "Mom, just let him go. I'm your son."
Right. That
Or
would have been an effective line if he did.
Now, maybe they took it out. I don't know, but I'll put that up to the listeners. I could have swore, because I watched this movie as a kid a lot, and I could have swore there was something else he said, which led to her dropping him
Yeah.
and choosing Elijah Woods or Mark's character and pulling him up.
Right.
But it sure took the dad and the fucking like doctor a long time to get there. Like Mark runs out of the room and they're wrestling around on that, and he makes it to where Henry is, and they're wrestling around on the cliffs. There, she has enough time to climb it up, and they're still fighting, and the other two people haven't fucking showed up yet. Like,
right.
How slow is his dad? Like, dude can't like get his ass in gear, you know? Like yet again, suspension of disbelief. As we could pick apart all these movies with
for sure
holes and stuff like that. But I just feel like to take Macaulay Culkin at the height of his stardom and to put him in an antagonist role like that was just very clever and smart. And it really, to me, started to show the acting chops further that Elijah Wood had.
Yeah. Yeah, because Elijah Wood, to this day, like, you can tell who had a continued career in movies and, like, progressed. Because, I mean, we're talking about a kid that ended up being freaking Frodo in Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
and now runs his own freaking horror movie label, Spectre Vision.
Right, and is a great horror movie. I wonder if he'll ever remake The Good Son.
That would be interesting if he did. Like, I would have good faith because, like, his company makes some really good freaking movies.
You know, and I'm not someone that believes this movie has to be remade, but I think it'd be interesting if they did it now.
Yeah.
Because it is definitely very much a product of the 90s, but maybe it is something that could be remade. And I don't believe that anything could have helped Henry. I think he was a psychopath and he needed to be institutionalized. Like, this kid killed a little baby, killed his baby brother. Like, that's fucked up. Like, I think this kid needed treatment and needed to be put away. But I think he was just very good at manipulating and being a narcissist, and his mom made the right call.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
I completely am on board with you on that one.
Right. So, all right, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one.
All right. So the next film is Village of the Damned by John Carpenter from 1995. It's an American science fiction horror film directed by my all-time favorite director, John Carpenter, and starring Christopher Reeve, Kirstie Alley, Linda Kozlowski, Michael Pere, Mark Hamill, and Meredith Salinger. It is a remake of the 1960 film of the same name, which is in turn based on the book from 1957, The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. 10 months after the small California town of Midwich was struck by a mysterious event during which everyone in the village felt unconscious at once, 10 local women give birth on the same day. As the unsettlingly calm and unemotional children grow at an abnormally fast rate, it becomes clear that they can read adults' minds and force people to harm themselves. Local Dr. Alan Chaffee and federal agent Susan Werner must team up to battle the alien children. Now, this was a movie I had seen a long time ago, and I just thought it was okay, but I loved the story to it. And rewatching it now, I like the movie better. But man, like literally in that description, the unemotional children. Like, yeah, these kids show no emotion, and that is so freaking creepy. They are like of a hive mind.
Absolutely. Fun fact, the young lady that plays the head of them went on to star in True Blood.
Really?
Yeah.
Who did she play in True Blood?
I don't know. I just saw that I never watched the shows, but she went on to
I was a big
True
fan
Blood.
of that series.
But she went on to True Blood because I thought she looked familiar. So she did go on and have a little bit of a television career after this movie. I thought it has a time capsule with Christopher Reeve being in it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that's incredible to begin with.
I'll say back before he was paralyzed.
Yep.
Which, I think this was his last film before that happened, actually.
That's crazy. The unplanned pregnancy, what I never got is all these people got knocked up and they were all like, all right. And they all kept the baby because nothing was wrong with the babies. But then the babies were all really weird and they kind of just became these kids' bitches.
Yep.
Town just bowed to these kids.
And I do love, because like the whole entire time I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, when these women get pregnant, why are they just going to all of a sudden keep the baby? Like, I understand a couple of them keeping the babies. But why would all of them do it? And then when the government agency lady comes in, Kirstie Alley's character comes in and tells them, like, you know, the government will help you guys out if you guys decide to keep them. and stuff like that. I'm going, oh, that makes so much more sense now.
So they wanted to study them, right?
Yeah, and they wanted to see what was going on. But yeah, these children made everybody their bitch.
Yeah, like they just ran this town and they walked around in their little like twosomes, except for poor David, who did not lost his mate or his sister or whoever it was supposed to be. And you do have some empathy for David, and he does appear to be able to feel some emotion. He only engages in a couple of harming. He actually doesn't engage in all of them. He harms Christy Alley's character. He assists in that. He's a willing participant in that, but that's also because she's kind of.
Well, it's because she was using them, and then he finds out that her or his mate, sister, or whatever, was put in a freaking glass jar just like to be experimented on. And
right.
I think that was just kind of like, oh, you did this? Okay, I got it. Like, I got to get my revenge on you for this.
Because you see that he mourns, and maybe that's where he was able to form emotion, is because he continued to mourn the death of his other half. Maybe that's why he was able to build empathy. But when these kids are little babies, they're actually pretty cute. But when they start like forcing their mom's hand in hot boiled water, which watching that scene, I was like, oh my God, she's going to do it. Oh my God, she's going to do it. Oh my God, she just did it. And like her leaving her arm in there and screaming, as cheesy as it is, it really did kind of creep me out a little bit that these kids have this power over you to just make you do whatever they feel like making you do.
Yeah, because I mean, like, even that scene you were talking about, especially like the one neighbor shows up and she pulls her arm out of there, and then like she runs back trying to shove her hand back into it because it's like she's still being forced and controlled, and that's to like completely lose your ability to like keep yourself from harming yourself. That's scary.
It is scary, and it's not the best movie in the entire planet. I would never walk out of this movie and be like, oh man, best film ever made. But it's just interesting how these kids, that are technically an alien race, are manipulating. And the lead girl has this monologue with Christopher Reeve that is actually pretty good for like a 12-year-old young lady.
Yeah.
Like the exchange that she has back and forth with him is pretty good, and at the end, how he manages to keep a brick wall and
like make waterfalls and stuff like that.
Yeah, like
looking into his mind.
Like the ocean is what he thinks of, and it blocks her. It was really, really well done, and I love the bluntness of how like they're telling everyone how it's going down throughout the entire time. I don't know if the situation could have been handled differently, except if maybe there was some termination of the pregnancies once they knew they were alien babies, but obviously the government wanted to experiment, and that's why. And they were incapable of feeling and could manipulate. They were the classic narcissists on steroids.
Absolutely.
Really.
And well, the only thing I was wondering, especially with the situation, like could have been handled differently, is a lot of these parents, like especially in that third act, or just the adults in general, they know what these children are capable of, but yet they still go out as a mad mob, like bearing torches and shit like that. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, if anything, you should have just left the fucking town and let them go, and just found a different way to take care of them. Because you going up to them with torches isn't gonna do shit with these kids that have more power than you. And then you have like the entire police force showing up, and it's like, okay, you guys should have known they can control your mind and make you do shit. This is not gonna go very well for you.
Absolutely not.
Like they just made one mistake after another. Like, and finally Kirstie Alley's character was like, all right, we need to get the hell out of here. The government's going to be coming in and doing their own way of taking care of this.
She's like, I need to get back to Cheers. The bar's waiting for me.
Right. I don't need to be in this movie anymore.
God, I'm so done.
But yeah, I'm with you right there. It's like, it's a good movie, but it's not like, oh my God, this is amazing. But like, I do love the concept.
I'm glad I watched it, but it was a little cheese. It wasn't John Carpenter's best.
It looked like a made-for-TV movie.
It was hard to believe that he did The Thing and did this. And
I know, right?
I mean?
Like you see that with a lot of later career like movies. You're just kind of like, what happened here, bud?
But it's not a horrible movie. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But one of the better kids movies that I think has come out is going to be our next one.
Oh yes, And that is Case 39 from 2009, which is an American supernatural horror film directed by Christian Alvart and starring Renee Zellweger, Jordell Furland, Bradley Cooper, and Ian McShane. In her many years as a social worker, Emily Jenkins thinks she has seen it all until she meets 10-year-old Lilith and the girl's cruel parents. When the parents try to harm the child, Emily assumes custody of Lilith while looking for a foster family. However, she soon finds out that dark forces surround the seemingly innocent child, and the more she tries to protect Lilith, the more the horrors she encounters. And yep, you were telling me about this one and
Yeah.
this movie, and I had never seen it. So I gave this a watch last Sunday, I believe, and wow, this was really good. I really enjoyed this, and once again, it's kind of another child being able to play with your mind and manipulate you from and pretty much control you.
Absolutely.
Like, just the way Lilith does this, like it's almost all through phone calls, like just calling the people that she dislikes and like pretty much turning their worst fears against them. And wow, that is a great concept. And you find out more that Lilith is definitely more than just a child.
Yes, absolutely. And I think Renee Zellweger, and I'm not a huge Renee Zellweger fan, but
Neither
I think
am I.
she fucking nailed this role.
Yeah, this was really good performance on her end, for sure.
And you really go from, her parents try to cook her. They try to cook Lilith.
Yep.
And you don't understand why. And, you find out later that, it was due to her being a demon, is what you find out. But,
yep.
And like she gets out and Bradley Cooper's the therapist, and how she manipulates Bradley Cooper, and how she manipulates at the school when Renee Zellweger is going to pick her up and she thinks she's going to do something to one of those other little girls. Like, and my favorite scene of this, and the reason why I like it so much, is the car scene. The car scene, they're driving and she's going to go take care of Lilith somehow. And Lilith, before she kills anybody, she makes them hallucinate something. And Renee Zellweger hallucinates back to her mother. And the scene where her mother's driving her, and I think they're in a car accident, like that's what happened to Renee Zellweger when she was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And this demon puts her back there, and she realizes that it's not real.
Yes.
And she's there, she's like, this isn't real. And then all of a sudden, she comes out of it. And the demon and the little girl's face is like, what the fuck? And Renee Zellweger delivers this line to her. And I forget what it is, but she fucking nails it. Like, oh my God. Like,
because I loved that reaction from Lilith, because she's just like, all of a sudden Lilith looks scared. Like,
I think it was like, are you scared? Or something like that. It was something.
Yeah, I think it was. She's like, now it's my turn to scare you or something.
Yeah, and it's just like, you're like, fuck yeah, right? Because finally, someone has outsmarted this little girl that you perceive as a little girl that's taking advantage of everyone. And I just love that scene. Like, honestly, I probably
that scene is really
meeting because of that scene and her being like, fuck you, little girl. It's so, and the acting of that little girl is pretty fucking good.
I was just about to say, the acting from that girl, because she plays so sweet and innocent and just so adorable and cute. But then when you get her like separated from Renee Zellweger's character, and like when Bradley Cooper's talking to her as the therapist is trying to get to know her, like she just, I don't know, like just switches like that, and is just like this evil master manipulator. And
absolutely,
I was impressed by her performance, and I have to say I do love how a lot of this shit happens is she's calling these people up on the phones, and you just hear like this static or whispering from her end, and that's what kind of like triggers everything that happens to these people. And I love when she does that to Bradley Cooper's character after she finds out that he's terrified of hornets. And
that's right.
Oh my God, that scene, like, it's cheesy because like the CGI is not the best.
The CGI is not the best.
But man, that is kind of freaky. Just all of a sudden, like pulling out a freaking hornet from your ear,
Huge.
And then more keep coming out and more, and then they start coming from everywhere. It's like, oh my God, like that is a horrible like way to go out.
Absolutely, and what I love about it is that they're all controlled by this mind fuck, and that Renee Renee Zellweger's character is the only one that basically is able to fight it.
Yeah.
And she's a social worker, she has multiple cases, and it ties so well into that. And it's a good, I don't know if you want to call it a possession or demon. Like, I don't know exactly what realm this would fall in. I just think it uses the kid you're right, as this innocent little creature, so peaceful, so approachable, and manipulates everything. Like, it's just so good.
Yeah, she was a great a great character, like an evil villain, and also great at making it look like she was just this sweet little innocent child. I was just so blown away by her performance in this film.
Amazing.
The acting in general in this movie. And then you had Ian McShane as the police officer, that the police sergeant that was helping her too. And man, the acting in this, you had some real big name characters in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. There was some huge big characters in this movie. So if people haven't checked it out, I know we kind of spoiled it a little bit. Yeah, I guess I don't know, if you're seeing the show notes or you need to tell someone to watch it, tell someone to watch this movie. It is so freaking good.
Yeah, I highly recommend this.
It's a great story.
Yeah, and I was saying, we always mention that we're going to spoil these films.
I know, but some people don't care if they have stuff spoiled and they're able to go back and watch it.
This one, though, coming up, we definitely want to put this right out here right now. We will be spoiling this movie.
Yes.
And this movie that we are going to talk about, you want to just jump right into this?
Please do.
All right, so the next movie we are going to be talking about is Becky from 2020. And this is, whatever, American action thriller. No, this is Canadian film.
It is. Now, mind you, it's American production company that's filmed in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. But
yeah, I just had to give that shout out because when you found all that research out, I'm that's not just American.
Well, I've been to spots where this was filmed.
Right. I'll say this is in your backyard.
When I walk through, when she's running through the forest and shit, that's Mount Nemo near me. So I've been there. The house is filmed near off of that area, off of a pond. I know where that area is.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll get back into this, but I just had to point that out because I'm that's not completely accurate, and I wanted to give the Canadian love here.
Exactly.
But it's an action thriller film directed by Jonathan Millett and Carrie Mermian, from a screenplay by Nick Morris, Lane Skye, and Ruka Skye. It stars Lulu Wilson, Kevin James, and Joel McHale. The synopsis is, spunky and rebellious Becky tries to reconnect with her father during a weekend getaway at a lakefront house. But the trip soon takes a turn for the worse when convicts on the run, led by the merciless Dominic, suddenly invade the home. And, all right off the bat, I gotta say, what a fun freaking movie this is.
Yeah, it's Home Alone on steroids.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, once again, kind of a home invasion gone wrong in a way. Because Dominic and his gang, Dominic played by Kevin James, just shows up at this house trying to find this item that you really don't know what it's for, but he's looking for the specific key that was hidden in this home, which also I have no idea how the key was placed there in the first place. But yeah, Joel McHale's playing the father of Becky, and they're going there to meet with Joel McHale's new girlfriend, or not new girlfriend, but girlfriend and her son. And that's when, Becky finds out they're planning on getting married and all this. She gets pissed off and goes and runs to her little treehouse / cabin out in the middle of the woods in this up north lodge. And yeah, when all the events happen, Becky is already gone, in this place, just kind of staying away from the family. And this is when the revenge takes place, because her father ends up getting killed. And if her father didn't get killed, I don't think this film would have played out the way it did.
No, but because he's killed, she loses her fucking mind.
Yes, this is, oh my God, she is just, I'm trying to think of the word, she is a budding sociopath.
Yes.
And oh my God, the way, this is the one film on our list that, technically she's not evil, she is getting revenge, but this is also a child that instantly loses her innocence with her father dying.
Well, and you kind of wonder if at what point it's revenge and then what point it's murder, because she eventually murders somebody who shows her mercy
Yes.
who a couple of times tried to kind of alleviate the situation, who clearly didn't want to be there, and actually saves her.
Yes, exactly. Like I think there is a like point that there was already this child was already partly damaged. Like
I think she was a sociopath, actually, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And I think that she'll probably kill again. I think this was just a situation that she killed because it was appropriate. But even during the interview and how she's behaving and eating the candy, and it's a very manipulative thing. So even though she is painted as the protagonist throughout the film, which she is, when it gets to that ending scene and she kills somebody who technically probably could have been shown mercy, some people would argue that no, she was just cleaning fucking house and she had every right to do that. And some people could argue that no, she's a psychopath, right? Like it could go either way, to be quite honest.
Yep. I could have understood if that was the character that actually was the one that killed her father.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't. He was there during that incident. But like no, like that, like yeah, you are right. Like she is a sociopath, and yeah, this was just a way for her to do this and get away with it. And like yeah, you said right in the end when they're doing that interview with her, no emotion.
None.
She
And she's
has
like
no emotion or
acting
remorse.
like the victim, and they're like, and the social worker's like, oh, you'll be okay, and the cop's like, look, dude, like she fucking slashed this guy with pencil crayons in his eye and beat the shit out of him. She ran over someone with a motor, like of a boat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and she used a
gave her some pretty
lawnmower
rough-
on freaking Kevin James.
yeah, like she did some pretty violent, very violent. She removed Kevin James' eye. She stabbed him in the eye with that key.
Yep.
Like there was a lot of really violent shit that goes beyond self-defense.
Yes.
Like
she took it above and beyond and just reveled in it.
yeah, you could argue it was grief as well from her mom dying of cancer, and then because she doesn't harm her what would have been stepmom and stepbrother. She technically saves them. So perhaps maybe there is some humanity there. She doesn't just piece off and leave them. She waits with them when the cops come.
Yep.
So yeah, and I really think the potential girlfriend stepmom actually is a really good actress in this too.
Oh yeah,
Like,
like,
she
there's that
delivers some
one line you
lines.
loved.
Oh my gosh, of like, she is the most spiteful girl and you've killed both of her parents. Good luck. Like it's
Yes.
just how she delivers it is really good. And or like the part where Kevin James walking by and she sees Becky and she's like what the fuck is this for, to get him distracted, and little kid boy is like, mommy, we're not supposed to swear. And she's like, well, sometimes, honey, people are just so stupid that you have to ask them what the fuck is this for. Like it's
Yes.
just really and Kevin James did fine. I don't think he made or break the movie, honestly. He was fine.
Yeah.
But I think for her it was like Home Alone, only way darker. And
Yes.
a much more, though Home Alone is pretty dark. It's just that they don't get killed, even though through all those traps they should have died at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? But it's a great 2020 film. It's a great, is she a protagonist? Is she an antagonist? And really it's up to you, the viewer, how you feel at the end.
Yep, because yeah, I remember when you first watched this movie, like when she started just like kicking ass, you're just going, "Oh fuck yes," because you didn't like her at first. Like when the movie first started, you're like,
I thought she was a
"Oh,
little
this."
brat.
Yeah, it's like they're like, "This child's a brat," and then when she like snaps like that, you're like, "Oh fuck yes." And yeah, this movie is just like a great horror film. Like it's just a lot of fun, and like, but man, these kills that she performs on these people is just so brutal, and you can tell she's reveling in it, which just makes this like that fits our category. Like
Absolutely.
And I did notice kind of a trend here in a way. Like 3 of these 6 movies for sure had like kids that could control or manipulate the situation with their minds, where Becky is just a straight up killer.
Well, and she's smart, so she can manipulate some things with her mind. She's not stupid. But I think a lot of people and every single film we see underestimation because they're children.
Yeah.
And, that's where kids really come through. If we go look at back to our beginning article, it's the innocence and not expecting that to come from a kid.
Right, exactly. And this one, like I think this movie with the whole with Becky with the line "the innocence lost" really fits that movie. Because like
Cool.
right after that, like, yep, she's not the innocent child anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a really valid point, and I think all these movies we talked about today are worth a watch. Some are dramatically better than others, but yeah, definitely. I don't think kids in horror is going anywhere. I think we're going to see more kids in horror, and we could probably do a whole other segment on kids in horror. Like we could talk about The Exorcist for crying out loud, and Possession of the Possession of Emily Rose, I think it's called.
Exorcism of Emily Rose.
The Exorcism of Emily Rose. We could talk about Sinister. We could talk about Insidious. Like, there's so many movies that we could talk about with kids. Cooties.
Like zombie children.
So, yeah, we have a list. So I think eventually we will get through other ones. But for today, we just wanted to look at some of our favorite antagonists that we wanted to talk about. Doesn't mean that there's not other antagonists out there that are kids. These are just the ones that came to mind for us.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, that'll be wrapping up our main topic. Which this was definitely a fun one because there is so many to choose from, and it'll be fun to revisit this in a different way sometime down the road.
Absolutely.
So I guess we can jump on into our Out of the Dark segment, which I'm pretty much titling it as "What is a good age to introduce children to horror?" And I kind of wanted to read an article before I jump into the question that we'll discuss about ourselves. But I found this article from offspringlifehacker.com, and it is How to Introduce Your Kids to Horror Movies. They actually gave a breakdown of like the ages of what certain types of movies would be appropriate. So they started off with ages 5 to 9. And this writer says, I forgot to get the author's name, I'm sorry, but I think 5 to 7 is a good time to introduce gentle horror to kids, but your mileage may vary. Here are a few movie suggestions geared to that age range, featuring horror elements that aren't too unnerving, but aren't totally neutered either. So for ages 5 to 9, this writer suggested The Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, Monsters Incorporated, and Hotel Transylvania. Yeah, I could totally see that. Like, those are, like, especially, I would say also I would add in the Monster Squad if you were, like, 7 or older. But I think they're kind of more focused on, like, the newer style children horror films.
Yeah, and I think it depends on your kid. Like, I'm sure we have people listening to this that are like, oh, whatever, man, I watched The Exorcist at age 6, or I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, majority of the podcasters I know started watching horror movies when they were, like, 5.
Right.
Right, and they saw Halloween at like 5 or 6, and I think for me personally, I was a very scared child, and Neil Lemoy from NFW has made a very funny video once. I used to be terrified of this Ruffles commercial with a vampire.
Oh yeah.
And he found it. You know, I was a really scared kid. I also was scared of shit that happened on Sesame Street. So it's ironic now that I really like horror movies as much as I do, because I definitely was very, very afraid for a long period of time. So I think it depends on your kid. Like, obviously we're giving guidelines. I think for someone like me, the movies that you suggested would have been fine. I would also argue Hocus Pocus, The Witches, are, you know, great entry-level horror movies. I'm trying to think of some other ones that have come out this year that might be other ones. Like for some of the Annabelle movies. I know Brandon Orlick from Exploding Heads, his nephew, one of his first movies was one of the Annabelle films, like Annabelle Creations, I think it was. So that might be a really good fit. Yet again, like, you got to know your kid. The most recent Child's Play movie could be okay. I think the older ones, like the 80s ones, are so cheesy that kids would be like laughing through it.
Right.
Another podcaster, Kenneth from Kill the Cast, talked about his daughter watching Evil Dead and laughing through it. You know, like, so, like, everybody's different, but I think the guideline that you gave there is probably a safe guideline to go by. And if the kids don't seem upset, and really how you're going to find out if they have nightmares, you know, if they have issues going to bed, they can't separate from reality and fantasy.
Right, and that's actually one of the things the article just was going to talk on, is that they have a hard time, younger kids can have a hard time telling reality and fantasy apart. And
so do most adults sometimes.
That is true. But they said the reason they gave the animated movies is because the animation helps make it clear that none of the scary things they see are actually happening, which that makes a good point.
Absolutely. I think that can be very valid for sure.
And then I was saying then they go to age 9 and 10. And it says, when your little fright freak hits their 9th birthday, you can probably start breaking out more mature live-action movies with horror elements. And the list of movies they give, oh, this makes me smile, but it's Ghostbusters, Beetlejuice, and Gremlins.
I'd also put Critters in here.
Yeah, Critters.
I think Critters you could even watch younger, to be honest with you. Even Gremlins, I think you can watch younger. It's not that
Gremlins,
scary.
yes. But I was like, Critters kind of scared me when I was younger, when I first seen it.
Well, you're a bitch,
Gremlins-
so that's
Gremlins
why.
didn't scare me at all. Oh, shit.
Just kidding. You know which one is actually kind of scary is The Blob, 1988. Like, that's actually kind of like.
Well, yeah. That one you would not be showing. That one you would have to kind of judge your child by that point.
I could see by 10, 11, 12 being okay with The Blob. It's really going to depend, because even now for me, there's movies that stick with me. I've been told by partners I've been with that, like, I've sat through and watched Final Destination, I've sat through and watched The Woman in Black or whatever, and been like, all right, bedtime, gone to bed, and they're like creeped out and can't go to sleep, right? So
Right.
I think, like, and the thing is for us is we get more desensitized.
Yes.
So ghost stories really bother me though. So something like Insidious is very tough for me because of the ghost element of it, though the later ones aren't that scary. And that I would never watch just before bedtime. Like, there's certain movies I can't watch before I go to bed because they just bother me so much.
Yep, and for me, I don't think I have anything that does that to me.
Yeah, Midsommar does.
Well, no, Midsommar I could fall asleep to. It's like, no, the one that no.
Dave Z, did you hear that?
Oh my
Scott
God.
Crawford doesn't like Midsommar.
Oh my God, no, Dave Z knows better than that. But no, I will say the last movie that truly had an effect on me as an adult would have been like where I was actually just completely creeped out was Hereditary.
Really? Hereditary didn't do that to me.
Yeah, for some reason that one just unnerved me so much. Like after I finished watching it in the theater, because I did a double feature with Upgrade and Hereditary at the theater, I just said, screw it. Just gonna watch both these movies by myself at the theater tonight, have a Friday night fun time. And Hereditary was the last movie I'd seen, it was the first movie I'd seen, and then Upgrade. After I left and sat in my car, I had to sit there for a few minutes because even though I watched Upgrade last, everything that was going on in my mind from Hereditary, I was just like, fuck. That one, like, I just sat there for a minute, just like kind of just like put it all together in my head, and I'm going, holy shit. And like driving home the whole entire time, I'm going, I haven't felt this unnerved in a while. Like, I don't know. It's just something about that film that just gets under my skin.
The Final Destination movies never bothered you?
No.
The thought that you could predict your death and do nothing to avoid it?
No, the movies themselves never had that effect. Well,
What about the concept?
The concept is like, well, actually, I was gonna say the concept is, yeah, I don't find those scary though. Like the scene with part 2 with the expressway, that left a lingering effect on me. Just like I think it did to everybody.
When you drive behind a log truck, you don't think twice.
Well, that's exactly what I was just saying. That scene in part 2 with the log truck is one of those scenes where I think any horror movie fan that's seen that movie avoids the log truck.
It's true.
It's just, you've seen what happens, like what could very small chance happen. But it
could.
Yeah.
I think I told you the story that I had a piece of plywood hit my car on the highway.
Yes, you did.
Right? So it caved in my windshield. And to this day, I have yet to understand how I kept my car in control and pulled over. Probably just because I wasn't caved in completely, but it was pretty scary.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, it was shocking actually. So to give the audience an idea what happened, I was driving on a highway here called the 403, and I was going about 100 kilometers. That would probably be about 60 miles, and I was just driving, and all of a sudden, I didn't see it, but I heard it. I heard something that sounded like an explosion, like an atomic bomb went off. And I closed my eyes. I had sunglasses on. I opened them, and I was covered in plexiglass. And what had happened was a piece of plywood had come flying off a truck somewhere and had embedded it in my windshield. And it hadn't broke the windshield completely, but what it had done is it had shattered it enough that plexiglass had fallen on me. I was obviously shocked at the time. Somehow I managed to keep the car in control, and I got off on the next exit, which was immediately there. I was a little bit cut and bleeding, but nothing too bad. And I called my husband, my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time, in tears, obviously.
Right.
And he came with a tow truck, and I couldn't really explain what was going on. I was trying to clean myself off with the glass. And I don't know how long I sat there for, because I was in a lot of shock. I probably should have called the cops, but I didn't, because they probably need to know that somebody is driving around with like plywood free.
Right.
And the tow truck driver showed up. My ex-husband showed up. They both looked at the car and they looked at me. And my ex said, "How did you get off the highway? You were going 100 kilometers an hour at least. How did you do that?" And I said, "I don't know how I did that." And luckily, my parents never saw it, because we went to a repair shop near my parents' house. And I came and saw them, and I just had to get cut. Like, I was cut, right? So I had to clean myself up. But yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, that is an experience I don't think I would ever want to go through, and that is insane.
It's insane. And, I look back on it now, and I probably really should have reported it. I can't believe I didn't. But, now it wasn't logs. It was one piece of plywood that came flying. Thank God I kept in control, because it would have been scary as the pileup that would have happened from me losing control.
Right.
But yeah, so, shit can happen on the highway. I don't know if the log truck would happen, but people don't secure shit on their cars. That's what happened to me, right? And that's why that occurred. So bottom line here, Friday Nightmares, secure shit on your trucks. Don't have stuff flying and hitting people and stuff. But anyway, that was a completely random story. Hopefully you found it interesting at least.
Right. I'm going to jump into the ages 10 to 13 category here. And by the time you're
decided I'm done talking.
Was that?
Scott decided I'm done talking. Continue, Scott.
Well, we're going to have plenty more to talk about after I finish the article. So. But by the time your kid is a tween, he or she is ready for the uncut stuff. Movies designed to deliver the jolts and fear and creeping dread that horror fans of all ages crave. Personally, I'm squeamish about introducing children to very violent movies, so the choices below are non-brutal PG and PG-13 flicks, but they're still adult scary. And the movies he chose was The Poltergeist, The Ring, and The Conjuring. So, the supernatural jump scare horror films are more like what he's suggesting for the age group for this one. Because, Poltergeist has some gore to it, but then ages 13 and up, teenager horror fans generally don't need parents nitpicking the age appropriateness of movies, but they might need help finding the really good stuff. Left to their own devices, many kids will stick with the slick but disposable Team Scream movie playing at the local multiplex. Those are awesome, but if your kid is a budding terror cinephile, try introducing them to more artistically challenging examples of the genre like The Shining, Get Out, The Innocents, It Follows, Rosemary's Baby, and The Witch. And yeah, I'd say...
Is any honestly 13-year-old going to sit through Rosemary's Baby?
I was just going to say, The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, and The Witch are not going to be ones they'll want to sit through.
Maybe The Witch. Maybe The Witch.
I wouldn't even... I'm thinking that one you got to be, able to focus. Because I think it's just like that discussion that you and I had about Gretel and Hansel. The kids there. That's kind of like what I feel with The Witch. It's they're going to be bored.
I feel like The Witch, though, is a pretty much more a clearer plot than Gretel and Hansel. I feel like more happens in The Witch.
Oh, it does, but it's
right?
I think it's just kind of like that slow build-up. And, ages 13 to 15, I'm thinking slow burn horror is not, the best age. They want something a lot more action-packed. I'd say 16 and up would be better for the slow burn stuff.
I would say Final Destination or anything by Blumhouse.
Yes.
Blumhouse. These kids are watching Truth or Dare. No, the average 13-year-old is not going to watch The fucking Shining. I'm sorry.
No.
Even I appreciate The Shining, but it's a long-ass fucking movie. And Rosemary's Baby, excellent film, but fuck does it drag.
Yes.
You have to be... And yes, I'm not saying there's not a 13-year-old out there that wouldn't appreciate it. Absolutely. Every kid is different, for sure. But I think, I don't know. And this is maybe going into a different realm. I think sometimes older horror fans or, people that, watch these movies and praise them don't get mad when young people don't like them.
Right, exactly, because you got to be a certain age to appreciate some of these films. And for one, a lot of the younger generation is not going to love these older films like we did because we grew up with these.
Well,
They did not.
Or, you know what? I didn't love it either. Okay, like let's do some real talk here. How long is Halloween? Like the original Halloween. How long does it take till anything happens?
About third act.
Yeah.
Almost.
Right? So, like, if I was 13 watching the fucking original Halloween, I would love to go back in time and be like, oh yeah, 13-year-old Heather would definitely grasp the concepts of how great that slow burn is. But probably not. And, like, we act like that's a fucking big deal.
Right.
And
well,
that we're surprised.
And that gives me thing that I was going to say. The first time I ever watched Halloween, I was 15 years old. I was 16 years old over my buddy Tim's house with a bunch of friends, and we rented a bunch of horror movies. Halloween was one that I rented. I watched it, was bored to tears, and turned it off. And didn't rewatch it until I would say about the age of 19 or 20. And when I watched it then, I fucking loved it.
So I hope everyone heard Scott say he loves it because I don't want to lose all of our listeners. Just so we're clear, Scott finally watched Halloween. I don't want anyone to get upset.
I watched it again because I'm only 21 now. So yes, I did watch it finally.
I watched Halloween at 15 or 16 and I loved it.
Oh,
but
wow.
I wouldn't have loved it at 13. There's no fucking way. Like,
Right.
You know, and I feel like there's certain movies like It Follows is more modern. And yes, of course I love It Follows, but it has teenagers going through teenager angst and it's shit that they can relate to.
Yes, exactly.
I think American Werewolf in London, great film, but I'll be honest, I think that's a film that you got to be older to appreciate.
Yep.
Because of just the experiences of it too, right? Like there's certain films I appreciate Rosemary's Baby more, being a woman that could have a child and understanding that time frame better now than I ever could have, even in my 20s.
Absolutely. Yeah, because in hell, I didn't watch Rosemary's Baby till last year for the first time.
But you're only 21.
I know, right? That's why I started it young. But no,
Right.
I would say like for stuff from the 80s, like movies that I would recommend to 13 to the 16 age group would be like The Thing, The Blob, Friday the 13th series, Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff
not
like
the first one.
The first Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
No, first one, no,
Like,
because that's
depending on the kid, right? But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And I feel like that's a series that Friday the 13th Part 4 is a great kid movie.
yes.
Like it really is. Like it moves quick. You're invested because there's a kid in it. You know, it's a lot of fun. Even the Halloween movies, I think 4, 5, and 5 are good for kids.
Yeah, well, and that's one other thing I was gonna bring up too is like that was why I think I was bored with the first Halloween at my age because I had watched I watched 3, 4, and 5. And that's why I never had an issue with Part 3 because I watched Part 3 first. So with no Michael Myers, I had no issue with that. And then 4, 5, and I never did see Part 6. I still have not seen Part 6 to this day, not realizing I've never seen it till like I heard about it. I'm like, oh, but yeah, 4 and
You ever
5.
seen Paul Rudd in Halloween
Nope.
Part 6? Oh.
I've seen
You
everything.
Buster Rhymes?
I unfortunately seen everything else, just not that one. For some
I like
reason,
that
I
one
like.
with Buster Rhymes. I think it's funny.
Oh god, that movie is so painful.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's such a dumb movie. It's hilarious.
Oh, it's so painful.
Wasn't it Is it Resurrection?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh god, it's so.
And they like fight and shit. Oh my god, it's such fucking jokes. Like it's just so fucking stupid.
But yeah, I think that's why I thought the first movie was kind of boring though, was because 3 and 4 were a little more faster action paced. They were already had a kid involved, so I could relate. And then when I got older, I was just like, oh, this isn't as like fast as the other movies got. Like it didn't jump right into the action. It was a slow, unsettling burn. But yeah, it's like it really all depends on your child. Because the question I was going to ask is, at what age did you start watching horror?
That wasn't a question I wanted to answer yet. I had other things I wanted to say,
Oh,
so I'm not
well,
really
what were you
prepared
saying?
for it.
Oh.
Honestly, I don't think I really watched any real scary movies till I was maybe 11 or 12.
Oh, nice.
I didn't watch 80s. Like I remember Scream as probably one of the scariest ones I've ever watched. It was around the time I started going on roller coasters. I kind of just I started doing cocaine. Just kidding.
Jesus Christ.
I'm just kidding, everybody. I've never done cocaine. I don't even know what it looks like in person. But I think The Good Son probably would have been the closest, or The Witches, Hocus Pocus, like stuff like that. And then I just went balls deep. I went back to the 80 films, and I enjoyed the 80s movies. Like the first time I watched Halloween, I loved it. I loved Black Christmas. I liked Rosemary's Baby. I've liked a lot, and I've gone back to rewatch Rosemary's Baby as an adult and appreciated it more than I did as a teenager. And I don't know, like I think the one thing that has changed for me is that I don't enjoy the films that I used to enjoy so much. Like I used to think Urban Legends and Urban Legends 2 were the shit.
Right.
And then I like rewatched them recently, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So isn't that good? Like it's good for nostalgia, but it's not actually good.
Right.
And I find the films that I'm beginning to appreciate more now are the ones that are a little bit more heavy dialogue wise, that have grown on me. So like example, I probably wouldn't go, I watched Halloween 4 and 5 recently because I do enjoy the story going into those two, but I like Halloween 1, 2, and 3 more.
Yep, same here. Like,
right?
I actually don't ever watch 4, 5, or anything beyond that now. It's just 1, 2, and 3 for me, because maybe H2O in 2018. But yeah, everything else in the because Halloween's not been one of my favorite franchises. Yeah, like I like just like specific movies from that franchise.
I don't have favorite franchises. It's funny. I was talking to another podcaster that was teasing me about the name of this podcast, and was like, well, why did you guys choose Friday Nightmares? And I said, because like it sounded cool. Scott likes Friday the 13th, and I always get labeled that I love fucking Freddy. And I do. I enjoy that series, but I also enjoy the Friday the 13th series. I enjoy Hellraiser. I enjoy the Final Destination series. Like there's so many franchises that I like.
Yeah.
Like I really, probably not Puppet Master will be one of them.
No, probably not.
Probably not going to happen. But like I don't, the more I watch more movies, I don't really have a favorite, because really you can pick apart any of those franchises with issues.
Yeah.
I probably like the Nightmare one the best because I like Freddy Krueger the best.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, that is pretty much where I am at now, like, watching as many movies as I have. I always say Friday the 13th is my favorite franchise, but if I, like, actually broke it down, like, there's a bunch of franchises that I really enjoy. It just depends on my mood. Like, I am a huge fan of the Child's Play Chucky movie franchise.
Yep.
Like it, and with those, like, I think that's way more. Each movie is way more consistent, like with a rating, than like say Friday the 13th is.
I think it's really important, and I think you really highlighted this too about franchises and the ratings and what we've grown to love. Like we're kind of just talking about what has given us that warm feeling of comfort. And I think for getting kids into horror, you got to know your kid. And you have to know what bothers them. And some of them, they're just going to learn on their own accord. Like, they're going to tell you that they're fine watching something and then have nightmares about it.
Yep.
I still have movies that have, got to me in my dreams. And I have no problem admitting that. Like, I once had a dream that Freddy Krueger, like, was real. And, like, I said, "You're not real." He said, "Yes, I am." And I almost, like, felt him grab my arm. And then I woke up. It was, like, the craziest shit ever.
Wow.
Obviously, like, there was nothing on my arm. Like, clearly, I'm not fucking Heather. I can't. Right. But like it felt real. It felt real. And that's all that really matters. Right. Is that in that moment I was scared. So, I don't know. And I feel like sometimes we want to force kids to like movies just because we like them. And I think that's a really detriment thing that horror fans do. I honestly believe that. I think it's really important that we just let people have their own taste. And if they're
it's fine to introduce
like,
them, and if they're scared, then
or like they don't have to like the same classics you do, or they don't have to like the same modern films you do. Like I love It Follows. It Follows is probably one of my favorite movies of all time right now. Would I walk out and be like, and like someone said I don't really like It Follows, or it has these plot holes in it or whatever, and me be like, no, I think that's true. Like of course it does. It just reaches me the most, and it's a preference, right? So I don't know.
And one thing I was going to bring up too, like since I had asked you the question, I'll answer the question as well. For me, like when I started watching horror.
No one wants to know about your answer.
I know, right? No one cares. But I
care.
care enough to talk about it.
Do you want me to ask you so we can like act like I cared?
Sure, why not?
Scott, I really want to know, when did you start watching horror?
Well, Heather, to tell you the truth, it was way back in, let's say, 1986. You got a young Scotty in his pajama pants, just sitting there. Okay, enough of that bullshit. All right. So, anyways,
where is this going, Scott?
no, I would say I was about the age of 5 or 6 when I first watched my first horror film. So it would have been like 86, 87, and I just remember my stepdad worked for a video distribution company at the time, and he would bring home all these movies like on VHS, and they'd be ones they just take off the shelves that of the rental stores that he was supplying, and they just didn't need them anymore. So he'd bring them home and add them to our collection. Well, he brought home the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, minus a couple of the newer ones at that point. And at that age, I was watching the movies by the looks of the cover, not in any particular order. So
you were judging it on the cover art.
Yes, I was. And I think the first one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies I watched was Friday the 13th Part 4, just because I love the cover art.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then I think for Friday the 13th, I watched, I think it was also Part 4. And yeah, just I grew up watching the Freddy and Jason, and at that young of an age, they didn't scare me, but then I forget if it was like the next year or whatever, but my mom had seen me watching these movies, and she's like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "Oh no, these don't scare me, Mom." I got all little child cocky with her, and she's going, "Do you want to be scared?" I'm like, "Yeah, but nothing's gonna scare me, but you could try." So she had me watch The Exorcist, and I'll tell you what, that movie bored the hell out of me. But when that when everything started really hitting the fan in that movie, I couldn't handle it and had to walk out of the room. I was terrified.
What?
Well, I was like, 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, I'm surprised your mom showed that to you.
Yeah, I think she was just like, oh, he's getting cocky. And she knew she knew that I understood what was real, what wasn't, and knew that I'd be able to handle it.
I don't think she ever would have showed you that movie now.
No, she would not. Not the way she is now. No, she would not. And then also, I think this would have been at the age of 9 years old. I had snuck downstairs late at night while my parents were still up watching TV, and my stepdad had just brought home Hellraiser it just came out on VHS, and him and my mom were watching it. And all I remember is I peeked around the corner from downstairs, because where our TV was, you had to kind of look around a corner and there'd be the living room. And my parents were watching the TV, and I'm just peeking around the corner watching the screen, and it's the scene with Frank building himself up from the little droplets of blood in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the most gory scenes in that movie. And I just stared at that in just awe and horror, and I couldn't look away until after it was done. And then I just said, nope, and ran right back upstairs and just had nightmares.
These are not for your eyes.
Right. I literally had nightmares that entire night, and I didn't actually sit down to watch Hellraiser for several more years because I was just so scared of it after that.
And now you have a pinhead in your basement.
Yes, I do, and I talk to him constantly.
And I think sometimes also we embrace horror movies as a way of safely conquering our fears.
Yes.
It's a safe way. We talked about this way back in episode 1, and that allows us that safe escape.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think the whole children with horror movie stuff is really dependent on, yet again, your kid. You've shared some stories. I've shared some stories. We've had a little bit of rant about older movies. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting for people to share on their page if they let their kids watch horror movies and what the experience has been.
Yep, I was just about to ask that, or say that, please feel free to share on our page,
like Tim Davis. How much do you torture your children?
Right,
Especially
exactly.
Becky.
And also for anyone that doesn't have kids, or if you want to talk about it, what were the first horror films you've seen when you were a kid? I'd kind of be curious to hear everybody's thoughts on these, because I know everybody is different and every child is different, so it all
and
really
Scott
depends.
just started watching horror movies, so he needs to get some suggestions.
Oh wait, I thought that was you from what Brandon says.
Yeah, it was me. It's been a big year for me.
It's been you're growing.
Taking tequila shots, watching horror movies.
Just learning all sorts of new things.
Right, maybe I'll even lose my virginity this year. Who knows?
Oh, it's a possibility. 2020 is a magical year, Heather.
It's a magical year. Well, I think we beat this to death. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, I think this one is another one that we can put in the books. It is. I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to talk about on this episode.
Now, we have some very special guests coming up next time.
Yes, we do.
And we're really excited for it. So we'll save it, but we'll just say our next episode will be different than previous episodes. Like, it will follow a similar format, but it will be a little bit different because we will be doing our first guest spots, which is really exciting, actually.
Yes, and it's going to probably be absolutely hilarious and a lot of fun.
It will be. Unfortunately, Scott will be there, so the fun might go down a little bit.
Oh,
You know what's funny? I'm so tired, and I don't know how you're feeling. How are you feeling?
I'm still alive. That's about as far as I can tell you at this moment.
Yeah, like Scott and I were like, oh, it's going to be so great to do this episode hungover.
Oh, it's been a day.
3 hours later. But no, it's been a slice, and I'm glad that we got to cover this. I'm really glad I got to talk about some of my favorite films. I'm glad I was able to ask Scott a question and act like I cared about what his experience was.
You're such a smart ass.
Like, I went on a rant. He's like, I love it. I love him so much because he'll be like, he's so polite, where I would be like, hey, Scott, it's time for me to answer the question too. He's like, well, since I asked you the question, I am also going to answer the question.
I'm like, I was being nice and just waiting for you to go on your ramble, and just let it all out.
I'm just tired, Scott. I'm just tired.
I know you are.
Tired. Where's that line from? I'm tired.
So tired.
I'm tired of the world. I'm tired of the hate. I'm tired of the hating of remakes.
Yeah, right.
Tired. Just tired.
Let's not go up that hill again.
We don't want to go down that road. There's trouble.
We'll save that for a remake episode when we do one of those.
Oh boy, imagine.
The Heather ranting episode.
But as always, thank you so much for joining us. We recently found out we have listeners in the UK, Brazil, across the States, Canada. Was there anywhere else that you found?
Yeah, Australia, obviously.
Australia, yeah, Tim Davis.
Yep.
Our one Australian listener.
Yeah,
Daniel Luffy, I guess, when he decides to listen.
Yeah.
Anyway, and for anybody that listens in other parts of the world, if you want to comment on our Facebook page, we'll shout you out. We really appreciate that. When Scott and I started this, I was just hopeful that we would get 5 listeners that weren't our friends. So we definitely succeeded past that. So, 2020 has been a rough year for a lot of people, but I've been really excited that I've been able to share this journey with all of you. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoy it. This is a hobby for Scott and I, and the fact that you even bother listening to us is real flattery. So yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And before we let you go, I did want to drop this. Like, I forgot to mention this on last episode, but there is a new thing out there that Mr. Smoke Show Crawford is doing. As many people know, I wrote for Pop Horror, and we had a side part where I did a lot of video game articles for Pop Horror when they started diving into that. Well, it just so happens that we have written a lot of articles for video games over the past 2 years or so that we started doing it, that my team and I have just been given our own website, and I am now the main editor, along with Devin Shea, on the popgaming.com. And that so go ahead, if you're into any type of video games, board games, card games, tabletop games, please go ahead and check our website out. Sex games, yes.
50 Shades of Grey?
Yes, Heather.
50 Shades of Crawford.
50 Shades of Smoke Show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am very happy that I'm taking this role on. It's going to be a lot more work, but I am very proud to be able to run this website and get these new articles out there. And we got a small team right now, so it's going to be not as much content, but hopefully we'll get our team growing. Our website keeps getting better as the days go on. Something new gets added. When I first started this, there was only 7 articles on the website, so it just looked so empty and naked. And then apparently last night while I was out partying it up,
his minions were working.
Well, nope, none of my minions were working, but the higher up that created this website for us found a way to transfer all the video game articles that we've written for Pop Horror over to Pop Gaming. So now we've got like this nice, thick catalog full of news, video game reviews, all sorts of stuff. So I am just, please go give that site some love. We also have a Pop Gaming Facebook page. Please go there and give it a like. I'll be sharing all of our news articles. I'll probably start sharing some of the news articles and reviews on our Friday Nightmares page, just to kind of help promote and build this website. But if you could, just go there, give us some love. And we also have a YouTube channel as well that you can check out, where we do like video game playthroughs and stuff. And hopefully we'll have more when when we figure out what else we're going to do.
Pretty exciting, Scott.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be a part of this now.
I'm very happy for you. Scott is a phenomenal writer. If you've ever had a chance to read any of his articles,
thank you.
Is beyond detailed with his words. Just so you ladies know out there, he can write you some love poems that would just make you beg for his warm caress.
Jane Austen cry.
It would. He'd be like, "My lady, it has been a fortnight since our last visit. My loins ache for your love, your touch. I am not a full man without your calm and cool embrace, lady.
Oh,
Forever
you know
yours.
me so well.
Smoke Show Crawford." I'd be like, "Are we gonna bang? I kind of miss you." But
stop talking. Let's bang.
I also don't.
You want to go get some food after we bang? How about some drinks? Yum yum drinks? Sweet.
Yum yum drinks. And yum yum food. That's how it rolls. Yum yum drinks and yum yum foods. But in all joking aside, please support Scott's website. And if you play video games, I feel like horror nerds and video games just kind of go hand in hand.
They do.
There's no reason why you should not be going to support him. And I don't do anything, so you don't have to worry about supporting me for anything. Besides listening to this podcast, that's it. So all you got to do.
Just show us some love on our show.
Yeah, just show us some love on the show and don't hate me for making fun of Scott. And that's good. For Scott, you might have to try a little bit harder because he actually has shit that he does on the side. So Scott's a way bigger name in horror podcasting than I am.
Oh, please.
I don't know if anyone knows, he was part of the Horror Drunks, and they used to have these really cool shirts, and he was by Podcast at the Cemetery. I am just a freshman to his senior. So he is the one that will be like, "Oh, yes, that movie. I still won't forget. What was that stupid movie where I was like, the Thanksgiving one, Bloody something."
Oh, Blood Rage.
And you were like, "Oh, yes, Shadow Woods or something."
Yeah, Nightmare at Shadow Woods.
Oh, fuck. I could have punched you in the face if we were in person. So annoying. Oh, my God.
You love it and you know it.
Oh, my God. Do I?
You do. You keep bringing yourself back to the show to do this stuff. So, I mean, you got
I know. I can't believe it's been 17 episodes.
I know.
How are Exploding Heads up to 118? How have they done it? I don't get it. I want to murder you some days, and it's only been 17 episodes.
And the crazy thing is, 8 more episodes, if we can do it without killing each other, we will have hit the record that the Horror Drunks hit.
Oh, I think we'll surpass that.
Yeah, I think we're going to be going for a while.
Yeah, I don't know for how long, but I'm sure we'll surpass that. Keep our expectations low until Scott finds a fair maiden that he has to commit his time to. And
a fair maiden of the woods.
Yeah, so ladies, remember, Smoke Show Crawford. You can find him on our Facebook page. He's down to pound.
Hey there, babies.
He's doing this look where he either looks like he has something in his eye or he's trying to be sexy. So I'll let you imagine how that plays out. Oh, and he's kissing the camera. So it's very, very sensual. I feel like I'm like the worst described video ever. It's like the worst. So he's sticking his tongue between his fingers as his cat walks behind him. So it's like one of his many cats because he has 5, like a hoarder. So meanwhile, I have no cat. I was actually at my parents' place today, and my parents were like, "There's a cat. Do you think it's homeless?" And this cat was in the backyard. My parents live in like a very affluent area, so I'm pretty fucking sure it's not homeless. And there's like this beautiful black skinny cat, 'cause it's outdoors cat, right? And I go outside, I'm like, "You're a kitty," and it looked at me like, "Fuck you, bitch," and took off. I'm like, if Scott was here, that cat would have come over. And Scott would have 6 cats. cats in his house.
Oh God, no more cats. No more. They run this house. I'm just lucky to live here.
You know, like that Beyonce song, "Who runs the world, girls?" You're like, "Who runs the world, cats? Who runs my world, cats?"
Cats run my life.
That's too funny. I'm gonna find a way to make up that song. All right. Next time we will have some special guests from Down Under, who we are very excited to have on the show, and we will be covering a different kind of topic. Actually, something that's a little not political or social or reflective of characters necessarily, and hopefully you guys like it. So
it's gonna be a fun one.
To say, Scotty.
Until next time, unpleasant dreams.
See ya.